Well, good evening and welcome. Munson here with the Expat Man Cave. I've got two buddies who are lost in action so far. If I just take myself off the screen, I'll remind you who they are. The one on the left is Frank, Frank the Hat, Persian Frank. And then in the middle, from Alvagra in Portugal, Gary Austin. So let me just show you, just to remind you of those gentlemen who will be joining us soon. Yeah, there you go. So Garvo and Frank, I don't know, dealing with their trapped wind or whatever it is, the issues that have arisen over Christmas and their overindulgence, bit of gout, whatever it is that's besetting them at the moment. I'm sure it'll all be fine. I have your company anyway, don't I? So that's absolutely all well and good. Whether they turn up or not, this is when you when you feel like Billy No Mates when you're doing a show with two other fellas. But who knows? We might get some understudies, some surrogates, some substitutes showing up. And there you can see my green screen is turning to snow behind me. And it's a bit of a clue as to the subject matter tonight. We are looking at the battle of the decades here, because actually I've got another thing to share with you before. We'll just give you a little bit of context. Here's something that I saw earlier on this evening. Or earlier on today, that's crystallized some of the thoughts I've had over the last few weeks. Let me just put it on the screen now, and you'll see there that we have two gentlemen from the 1970s or 1970 and two gentlemen from 2020. And thank you to Jay for posting this up publicly on Facebook, so I feel happy to share this with you. Top picture shows a couple of easy riders who are on their rather fine motorcycles going across America by the look of it. One in a cowboy hat, I think one without a helmet. Not that I'm advocating such behavior. It just kind of gives you a bit of a flavor of what we're talking about tonight. And then in the picture below, in 2020, we have two young fellas, both with masks on. And I know they've got to by law, but they're on electric scooters. There is no comparison. What happened to us in those 50 years? So do you agree with me that the 1970s were the best decade? What happened in the last few decades? Because I had a good time in the 80s. That was my kind of heyday in a way. But I think the 90s were pretty awful. I thought the noughties were pretty awful. I mean, notwithstanding, I managed to have a great time and a good life. But if we're talking culturally, I think the 90s, the noughties, even the teens, and now what is it looking like? It's looking like two men in masks on electric scooters. That is not, to me, the epitome of manliness and machismo, if that indeed is a quality we want to return to. So there you go. That's quite a nice little bit of scene setting. And I'm just thinking, in these times, we're not only, do we face a mortal threat from a virus, we face a mortal threat from dullness in these times we're living in. And I'm thinking, for goodness sakes, what can we do in 2021 to live like alpha males and wild animals once again? And talking of alpha males and wild animals, here he is now, Gary from Alvagra in central Portugal. Good evening to you, sir. How are you?
Good evening, Carl. How are you?
I'm very well. As you can see, I've got a beautiful backdrop. I don't know if you remember these 1970s. So I just removed myself. Remember these? The cover version albums in the 1970s?
Yeah, the KTEL and everything and all that business, and the end of the year hits or whatever they were called. I think you used to get them at Woolworths.
Exactly, where we used to get our records from. So there actually might be quite a lot of decoding to do tonight when we talk about Woolworths, records, gramophone players, music centres, 8-track cassette, all sorts of things like that. May need some explanation, because I know you and me both understand such terminology. But I need to find out from you, Gary, before we go any further, and we welcome comments on the same here in the comments on Facebook or on YouTube, wherever you're listening. What was the best decade for you? Are you in agreement with me that the 70s were by far the best decade, musically, culturally, just in so many wonderful ways?
We must have been thinking the same thing today, because I was downstairs in the bar doing some work, and I found this double CD of the 70s, and put that on. And I thought to myself, how lucky am I to have lived through such a great sort of expansive music starting in the 70s, really, because there was some stuff I hadn't heard for years and years and years on that CD. And I thought, well, yeah, 70s were pretty good. And just incidentally, right, and you're probably going to laugh at this, remember the song Lola? Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't know. I didn't know, right? And it's only because I was listening to the words that Lola's a bloke.
Indeed.
And I never knew that. After all these, 40 odd years, I found out Lola's a bloke.
Indeed.
or a transvestite, possibly. But well, yeah.
Well, things have changed a lot, haven't they? With the politics of all of that, of transgender, transsexualism, transvestitism, and I think there are two. I mean, it just goes to show kind of how innocent and off the social and political agenda it was. That the two tracks that I remember. Well, Take a Walk on the Wild Side, which again I think features some pretty racy lyrics that I think it has some sort of cross or transgender content in there, but also, of course, the Kinks and Lola there. And he just claims to be quite an open-minded guy, but even that kind of knocked his socks off, right, when he met LOLA Lola. While you're gathering yourself there and giving me a few more of your recollections and big ups for the 1970s, NY Unix Guru. Oh, look, we've got a new comments sharing method tonight. I quite like this. Easy Rider, of course, from the 70s there. That's the still that we showed, I believe. But it was the point was of making the contrast between, two real men's men on Easy Rider bikes compared to two guys with their masks on scooters. Facebook user, could this be Chris? I preferred the 60s myself, and I completely understand that. I just don't have that reference point apart from the 60s being when I was born, and as a historical thing more than an actual thing. So tell us more, Facebook user. Why do you prefer the 60s? And talking of Lola, there's Owen calling us ladies tonight in his usual and inimitable way, carrying that through into the new year. Yeah, happy Christmas, happy New Year, everybody. Felicia Novo to you all. A bit rusty tonight. I haven't been doing this for ages, but great to have your company, Owen. And I think Henry was going to be here tonight to talk to you about Man City. Maybe if you're up for it. I'm sure Frank will want to do that wherever he is. Your Facebook user is drinking Sagres Imperial. I wonder where you're doing that. That sounds like fun. Have you found your own special kind of lockdown situation pub? And putting this in the way it should be put, Paul Williams says 60s for me, man. And the thing about the 60s, they say, if you can remember it, you weren't there, Paul. So tell us what your misty-eyed and partial memories are of the 60s, if you will. Safari, good evening to you, Joel. Felicia, and over to you, mate. Hope you had a good one, you and your family, up there in Porto in Portugal, of course. And a simple boa noite so far. But which was the best decade for you? Because part of this conversation for me came from talking to my hairdresser, my barber, wonderful woman, who, when we started talking about the village or the town where the barber shop is, the 80s were really the most amazing time, where she met Donald Sutherland making a movie in the local hotel. That seemed to be the heyday for that part of Portugal anyway, the 80s for Portugal. Probably late 70s and 80s, I would have thought. Susan's here as well. Hi, everyone. Happy New Year's Day. Happy New Year's Day to you as well, Susan. The Bee Gees for me. Who do we think this might be? Is this your brother? Possibly, Gary.
Or it could be. Could be. I don't know.
Couldn't it? But come on, Facebook users, we need to out you, or you need to out yourselves. Sandra Marks Webster, totally agree with you guys about the 70s. Look at this. I was a student at the UC Berkeley, Bob Dylan, Carole King, etc., living in the Bay Area, never a dull one. I mean, the absolute epicenter of 60s and 70s American hippie culture, right? What a fabulous place to be. Tell us more, Sandra. That sounds absolutely wonderful. While you're here, we need to call on your memories. Absolutely. If they're not too fragile, embarrassing, or partial. I wasn't even born in the 60s. I like the latter half of the 80s for the electro breakdance hip hop. I was 14 in 88, so you know how it goes. Yeah, a real youngster here among us tonight who was 14 in 1988. Yeah, I was in my 20s by then. But yeah, okay. So I guess there is something about the best time was when you were going to clubs. Is often the way for people, isn't it? Is when the best time for people is when they're in their late teens, early 20s. Maybe that has a part to play in it. Saturday Night Fever is presumably what this Bee Gees fan is saying. Marcos Vel bon anno novo for all here. Thank you, Marcos. Great to see you. Nice to see the boys are back in town. Says Neil, which is a good 70s reference. A Thin Lizzy track, of course. Punk rock with 3 lots of the clap there. Who are you? Is this the same? Oh, it's Doug. It's Doug. So I didn't have you down as a punk, Doug. But I mean, we need a new punk movement, don't we, in these times? We really do. Sorely need a punk movement. The 70s memories of sunshine and soul. Oh, absolutely, Owen. Yeah, aching for it. The 70s, that is. You guys making me feel exceedingly young. Well, that's all part of the job. It will. Someone's got to do that, haven't they? The 80s, yeah, says Joe. I was far more into foreign music in my early teens, even back then. Rock and proper pop. Proper pop. Listen, he's sounding like a proper old giffer here. And proper pop music, not the crap they spew out in today's era. You can't hear what they're saying.
Bloody row.
Yes, a bloody turn that bloody row down. Ramones, Blondie, Talking Heads, Elvis Costello. Yes, had all of those. I think in pretty much in the 80s, early 80s, on coloured vinyl. Vinyl and picture discs back in those days. Don't know why I'm incognito, says Doug. It's probably to do with your search. You know, the sort of stuff you search really late at night, Doug. Switch back off incognito. You're safe among friends here. Born in 79 and just missed out, but love the watches from the 70s and the cars. Yes, lot to be said. Watched the French Lieutenant's Woman last night. I think that's what it was anyway. There was a Rover 3.5 in that, Gary. You remember that? But that was more was that an 80s car, the 3.5 in that new shape?
I'm trying to think which Rover I'm it's not the
it's not the old one with a lot of chrome on it, but the new, probably 80s actually, a very sort of modern looking Rover 3.5 that was like the proverbial off a shovel.
I think the SD1 was out then, the rounder one, the more sort of, how can I say, modern looking one.
The Sweeney
78ish, so yeah, could be.
Okay, because the Sweeney had one, of course, didn't they? Victoria Benson, punk rock. Tell us more, Victoria, about how we can get a new punk rock for these times. I mean, do you agree with me that we are going to die of dullness, if not the virus, the way things are going? These are boring times culturally, and something needs to change with that. When we can tell these youngsters here what great times we had in the 70s and 80s, and it's up to them, for those two fellas on their scooter, to do, to be a little bit more, I don't know, dynamic and yangy. 92 was the best year for me. Crikey, the second summer of love, they called it. Who is that? Is that Paul? Is that the Paul Ryan of Paul Ryan's Meme Cave? He strikes me as a 92 lad. See, it passed me by, that 90s thing, but second summer of love, yeah, I can see that and understand why people loved it. It's not the fact I can't understand. Oh, here we go, a bit more. I can't understand the crap that they are saying. It's the fact that they consider a hit song of music that the only thing said is all the single ladies. Well, that's going back. That was the 90s. All the single ladies, wasn't it? I mean, that shows how old you are when you moan about music from 2 decades ago. I mean, you really are getting on then. The Jensen Interceptor, says Owen, was a beautiful car.
Oh, yes.
Beautiful. And Susan says, I was a Beatles girl, had the brooch, the necklace, and every 45. She loves you. Yeah, yes. Thank you. Wonderful, Susan. Beatles as well for Paul. Stones, first Isle of Wight festivals. You were there, Paul? Real taste of freedom. Wonderful times. And this is what Penny said earlier on in the Man Cave. It was the freedom of the 70s that she loved. Had so many good times. The pubs weren't open all day like they are now, but people had lock-ins, and the longest party she remembers having is 36 hours where they locked in after a pub session. Amazing. Oh, sorry, Gary, I will come back to you. There's just a lot of comments coming in. Beatles, Stones, The Who, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Queen, Santana, Grateful Dead. What is CCR? I'll kick myself for not knowing that. Jefferson Airplane and so many more, says Doug. All I can contribute is that my mum spoon-fed me Elvis, Dire Straits, Status Quo, and Queen in the 80s. Ooh, and endless Tina Turner. I still listen to Dire Straits. Tina Turner, of course, having her second career in the 80s, and he still listens to Dire Straits. in 1992. Oh, that was Jay, the man who started this conversation off. That was me, Steady J UK. Thanks, Jay, for joining us tonight. And here he is. Look at this wild man. Whoa! I'm a bit taken aback by your condition, Frank.
Why? What's going on?
Well, part of the promo for tonight was like men who smell like the 70s, and I can't smell you, but I'm thinking that might be not too far off the mark. You're Christmas, man. The festive perineum, that little bit in the middle where everything goes a bit weird.
That's exactly it. And by the way, before I forget, that's Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Yes. I see a pale moon rising. Of course. Whoa. That's a lively one. So how are you, Frank? And do you agree the 70s were the best era, if not musically, then in every other possible way?
In every other possible way. The decade closest to the 70s after that would obviously be the 80s. But after that, everything went downhill.
Okay. So there you go.
When did rap start? Whenever that started happening, that's when everything died.
No. Okay, this is where we begin to fall out here then, because no, I can't accept that, Frank. I mean,
why is that?
I think it's pretty obvious. None of us have been out for a while and haven't spoken to many other people. We're just practicing, aren't we, in this business of conversation? All right.
That was a nice slap. I like that one.
No. Rap started in the 70s. Of course it did. And it was part of the vibe of what was so fantastic about the 70s. If you think about rap block parties, the original days of Grandmaster Flash, DJ Kool Herc, those original names of rap music, that's when it began. But I do know what you mean. And I think you might be conflating a really ugly time in rap and hip hop music that would look like the end of all music. And I do accept that there was a really horrible time when rap, I suppose it was a bit like the 70s in a way, wasn't it? Where what happens when you give musicians and creative people far too much money? They take too many drugs and become too silly and get out of touch with their creative roots, and that's what happened in rap.
And lazy, because what this entire when mainstream music became rap or hip hop or whatever they want to call it, what ended up happening is because of all the sampling, because all the good music that came out of the 70s, it's for the past 20 years or 25 years, I've been watching it sampled by these complete, like, no talent hacks. You watch them and you say to yourself, what has happened to creativity in music? You look at some of the music and you say, as soon as the riff goes, you know exactly what they've sampled. And everything from the 70s is getting sampled by these nitwits sitting in the studio, not being able to play a single instrument. All they are doing is they're sitting in front of these machines generating sounds and then sampling them, and then somebody comes in and starts the entire. As soon as the entire line starts with yo yo yo, I am done. I'm going to shut you down. That's not going to happen for me.
Yo yo yo, Granda, give it a rest. I think that's a really serious misrepresentation of rap and hip hop, which might take us off the subject a bit tonight. But that sounds like a proper.
Could you? Okay, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Could you give me 3 lines or 4 lines of rap lyrics that go anywhere close to Lennon's Imagine?
Not straight off the top of my head, but that's not to
there
say
you go.
No, not there you go. The reason I know Imagine is because I've been brainwashed by it, and there's a similar heights of literary excellence and spiritual excellence, which I know exist in rap and hip hop, have never had the same airplay as Imagine, and that's why I can't do it. But I can get back to you on that.
I know you will.
Seriously, I think there is a serious spiritual core inside rap and hip hop. Wherever there is music of struggle or pain, or describing the social difficulty, there is often an incredible spiritual depth. So I will get back to you on that. I really will. But I get the point. I get the point, and I don't think it's a fair comparison. Quite frankly, Woodstock, amazing memories. I think that's Doug, who has memories of Woodstock, which says something about his levels of restraint whilst there, presumably. Credence, of course, yes, thank you. Frank sorted that mystery out. Dave and Debbie Winell, Felicia and another to all 60s music. Remember what my parents were into. That's quite another. That is a good barometer, isn't it? Is what you remember from what your parents inflicting on you. Credence, Clearwater Revolver. Yeah, not sure why I'm showing up there incognito. It's all right, Doug. I think we know who you are now. Incognito, who are of course an 80s R&B outfit, still making music now, under the guidance of Bluey Mornick. Smelling of the 70s. This is a good comment from Victoria. Dracar Noir.
yeah.
That was in a matte black bottle, wasn't it? A very stylish.
Another one. I think it was from the 70s as well. It was called Aramis.
Oh,
do you remember that one?
My dad. My dad wore it, and he used to call it Aramis. But Aramis, I'll go with that as well. But Brut, Old Spice, Aramis and Denim, all fine fragrances that I think we should keep. Show
I've
these
been
young.
looking for it actually. I've been looking for it because it reminds me of this uncle of mine who's a very chic guy, and he used to wear silk socks, and he was. I don't know why I remember that, but he used to wear silk socks, and this guy was just like, he was always dressed. You would ask him to come to the lunch table, and he'd have like a 3-piece suit on, and he was so elegant. And I always remember he used to smell like Aramis.
Very good. So okay, what comes to mind there is, you know that phrase, when men were men and women were men.
Mm-hmm.
It's aftershave was definitely gendered, wasn't it? So now you would get you would get couples sharing fragrances in a way that you never would in the 70s. I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
Fellow, they would splash it all over was actually a phrase, wasn't it? Of Brut, was it? And it was Henry Cooper, splash it all over, and it was a very manly aroma, and it was marketed at being a manly man. And then the women's fragrances were soft and floral and musky, and it was all very yinny to the aftershave yang. And it was called aftershave because for a reason, wasn't it? It wasn't called parfum or cologne necessarily, but it's become that. And that, to me, that's a pretty good barometer of what's gone on. Is this, how the thing has collapsed into the realm of fragrance rather than a kind of binary aftershave versus scent is the other word from the 70s, isn't it? Put some scent.
My brother, who used to live in London, he used to tell me that's where the term, like overdoing the cologne, that's where the term Persian shower came from.
Seriously? Oh, fantastic. And of course, we shouldn't stray too far. Now you've mentioned Persia, Iran, is the how Persia or how Iran was in the 70s. Because when you see how chic Iran was in the 60s and 70s, those pictures are extraordinary. I mean, you must have a bit of insight on that, Frank.
Yeah. All my mom's pictures from the 60s, from the 70s, from Iran, is because Tehran was called the Paris of the East. Wow. And all the big tennis tournaments they used to have, it was just unbelievable. And based on what my mom tells me, is all the big rock stars, Elton John, everyone used to go to Tehran on a regular basis. It was a very, very hip joint. The height of it is on YouTube. There is this video where the Shah, the king of Iran in the 70s, I think in 1976, he threw a huge ball celebrating so many years of the Persian Empire, and he did it in the middle of a desert, and he threw a party for all the dignitaries from around the world, kings, presidents, everyone. And it's on YouTube. You should go. You should have a look. And that was like the pomp of Iran around that time.
So you could say that Elton John did like the big balls of the Iranian leader.
Absolutely, but not like he loved it.
Couldn't wait to get there. Wow. Anything else percolating for you, Gary, from memories of the 70s or any insight about the decade?
You've just actually reminded me, because last night I was giggling to myself in the wine club because you mentioned George Michael, and it brought back a joke. And I'm going to say it's a bit risky, but what does George Michael and Wellington Boots got in common?
Oh no, I know the answer to this. The worst thing is that I can't pretend to be shocked now when you say it, because
Frank doesn't know probably.
Frank, do you want to do the bit where you go, I don't know, what does?
I don't know, what is it?
They both get,
Very good.
They both get sucked off in the bog.
Well, there you go. And I'm so sorry to say I haven't put the usual
They're used to it by now. Come on.
They might be used to it by now, but some people who've chanced upon this thinking there's a sociological discussion about the relative merits of decades might be a little bit.
Getting back to the central point, can I just one thing, right? I'm going to balance the conversation, right? Once again, I'm going to try and balance the conversation. I always said to my kids, right, look, don't be a music fundamentalist, don't be a music fascist, right? If you like it, if you like the sound of it, it's down to you. It's perfectly okay. And, from my own point of view, I like music from possibly, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. I like to have a good spread of music. I like to have a good musical sort of repartee. You can't say that you are just, I like music from that, and I like from that person or whatever. So I think it's healthy to have a good music spectrum to fill your sort of repertoire.
All right, favorite track from the noughties then? Exactly for that mixtape.
I was going to say, Gary, you know what? That there are people who like a symphony of farts. Doesn't mean that they're musical enthusiasts. They're just a bunch of idiots.
It's what they like. If it makes them happy, that's their thing.
But it's not just about happiness. It's about the sound, and the sound has to be pleasing to the eye, to the ear, to some extent. You've got the kind of music that has come out, especially in the past 20 to 30 years. I've just been very disappointed. I don't know if you do. You guys have records?
Not
old whatever.
Yeah.
I have a record collection. I don't think in my record collection I have about 300, 350 records. I don't think I have a single record past the 90s.
Yeah, but I think there's something wrong. There's something going wrong there, Frank. I think you've shut down. And I think that's what Gary's saying, is that, you have to stay open-minded whilst acknowledging that the 70s was the best musical decade ever. We can have it both ways, that that something is the best, but we don't have to lift the ladder up or close the door behind us. I am a bit shocked about how closed-minded you are about. Look,
can I do a Michael Jackson joke, please?
Only if you do a Michael Jackson impersonation first.
Okay. All right. So, what is the biggest Elton John cover Michael Jackson never did?
Oh, I don't know. I'm thinking that Jay's girlfriend might get this, because apparently she shouted out Creedence Clearwater Revival as though she were in a pub quiz. So she might be shouting out the answer to this joke. What was the biggest Elton John track that Michael Jackson never did?
Mm-hmm.
Go on.
Don't let your sun go down on me.
Good joke, ruined by the impersonation. All right. Drakkar Noir. Yes, we've done that, haven't we? Yes, we've done that one as well. Rap started in the 70s. We did that. And apparently that's when Man United started winning. Or maybe that was the noughties that Owen is referring to. Let's try again. Oh, I'm still incognito. T-Rex, says Victoria Benson. Yeah, another great example. Not only the great music, Children of the Revolution. We need another track like that right now. children of the revolution, to address the times we're living in. And of course, Mark Boland, what an incredible, well, and tragic story. But are artists like that anymore? Marcus says that you always smell the 80s and 90s sounds. I guess that's a Teen Spirit reference, right? The 80s and 90s have a smell all of their own. Grandmaster Flash, Victoria Benson, a fan there. I've met Grandmaster Flash in my working life and experienced one of his gigs. I'll say no more. AC/DC, I don't know. Oh, okay. I didn't know if this was a sort of sexual confession time. Scorpions, Metallica, Duran Duran, Alice Cooper, Bryan Adams, Megadeth.
Yes, yes.
All of these.
I like that Joel guy. He's a good lad.
Joel, you're becoming my favorite now. This guy knows his music.
The only band on there I like are The Cure, and I don't even like them that much. I mean, Queen, obviously. Queen, a bit like the Beatles. You can't. And Duran, but metal's wasted on me. But metal has been an enduring thing, hasn't it? Rock and metal throughout the ages, I guess. I think Doug can't abide rap. He's with you. So you two can sit on your own and moan about that in the pub when we meet up, you and Frank. Aerosmith and Run DMC was an awesome collaboration. Walk This Way. Yes. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. People have been rapping or doing funky lyrics, whatever you want to call it, for a long time. Absolutely. Way back in jazz music and off the wall from way before 1970. So I think Jay would agree with me that you are misrepresenting rap and hip hop a little bit. Try KRS-One, More Love. There to rival Imagine. Although, I mean, to be fair, Imagine is in a class of its own, isn't it? That's an unfair bar to set for
very unfair.
Yeah, okay, but there you go. Rap and crap rhyme.
Yes.
But that is an effort at hip hop in its own right. So MC Doug in Wales has entered into the music scene with his own little rhyme there. Fantastic. Actually, it's Jim McDonald in Germany who's showing up. Oh, so we got two people incognito. So it could be Doug, it could be Jim at this rate, agreeing with you about your lack of fondness for hip hop. My iPhone does not understand me when I voice dictate, so things come out so wrong. I've used that excuse as well. Also, I had to switch over to YouTube since you all can't see me on Facebook. YouTube's probably the best way to consume us, Victoria. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that.
Steady boy, steady. Really.
Yeah, that came out wrong. Sorry, that always happens when I use my iPhone to dictate. Blue Stratos, another classic. Cool Water was a good one by Davidoff.
Yes.
That's when it was starting to go a bit more, I don't know, a bit girly. I think because they're after Brute and Old Spice. Apple, what else? Apple, what's that mean? Oh, Apple, what else? I see this is the complaint about Apple. He's not an Apple fan, is he? As we recall, Joe. Sampling and looping, copying tracks has come a long way, Frank. Watch this guy and get back to me. So another recommendation for you from Owen. We are rounding on you, Frank, with your old granddad statements about rap and hip hop. Aftershave, Old Spice, and that's it. So still here in Portugal, it looks like you can get Old Spice with that wonderful, it's like a cuff stud, isn't it? The topper for Old Spice. A real man's fragrance. And let's not call it a fragrance. Let's just call it aftershave, which is what it is. Felice announced Novo Garvo. I think that's another typo. So I think that's a Felice and a Novo Garvo, Frank. Thought there would be flying cars by now. Yes, you could be forgiven for thinking that in the 70s. Yeah, that's another thing. We do need to discuss what we were told would be happening now. That we were told in the 70s that hasn't happened, but he thought there'd be flying cars by now. But instead, we stumbled into you, lovely lot. Thank you, Peter. And yeah, I look forward to talking to you soon, Peter. John Blue Stratus, High Karate, or there was a full-on Chinese.
Do you remember the High Karate advert with the woman with the eyes and everything?
The eyes and everything. Well, like Chinese eyes. Is that what you're trying to say,
Oh,
Gary?
I mean, oh my God, she was. She was like very tall, dark, and very buxom, and she was still like,
yeah. My mother was Chinese, as you may recall, or it still is, in fact.
What are you doing tonight, Carol? What is going on with you? What are you drinking? Tell me, show me the bottle, and I'll know exactly what.
There you go. Some of
All
that
right,
sort of-
then I know exactly what's going on with you. I can picture what's going on with you.
Well, like a fizz does the biz kind of moment, right? Getting a bit
Yes.
giggle. Okay. So my
So
mum
Your
is
mum is Chinese, yeah.
she was in her 30s, gorgeous looking woman in her 30s when high karate came out. You can imagine, with the Chinese stereotypes, Benny Hill doing his stupid idiot thing. Life would have been very interesting for her. But as I recall, the woman who did the high karate advert was an English woman pretending to be Chinese, wasn't she? Just with some Chinese-looking eye makeup, like Peter. Who was it? Christopher Lee. Like Christopher Lee had to make him look Chinese. This beautiful English model had the same eye makeup to make her look Chinese.
I'd never be Chinese because she was too tall. She was massive. She was like probably somewhere near a 6-foot job. But she was very, very attractive.
And karate is a Japanese martial arts discipline anyway, isn't it? So all sorts of all sorts of cultural confusion, which no one cared about at all at those times. It was a long time before you would be cancelled for that sort of behaviour, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, can we mention the milk tray man, because he was a man of the 70s, wasn't he? Really. Hence, we've got a bit of a pony neck going here.
You look like you could be the milk tray man delivering some chocolates up to Linda. Is that scaffolding?
Well, in North America, we had the Maytag man. So if you go and look at some of the ads from the 70s, there was from the 60s and 70s, the Maytag man. Gary looks like the Maytag man as well. He does look like the Maytag guy.
You do.
I wouldn't know what the Maytag man was. I'll have to look. I'll have to Google that and find out. Has he got a trunk or something?
Pardon?
Has he got a trunk or something?
No, he just looks very legit. That was a compliment, Gary. Like every time he would come on the screen, he'd be like, "Hey, buy this washer. This will do you well." Maytag is like a brand of like washer and dryer, right, for laundry. And he'd be like, "Buy this one. This will really work well for you." Reliable guy.
Yeah.
Reliable guy.
But that's what women really like, it really is like, whoa, he's so reliable. And I think you are doing that.
No, they don't. They like a bit of danger. They like a bit of excitement. They don't like boring people.
We dare not go into that territory saying what women like. Tell us yourselves.
Don't you dare call yourself boring, Gary. You entertain me all the time.
Well, I don't think I'd ever call myself boring, to be honest, because I know me.
Yes. As far as I'm concerned, you're a rock star. Cheers to you.
Oh, you're a lovely. I love you, Frank. I love you. I do.
But I think if you've got the scaffolding left up still from the painting, you could go up there later with your box of choc through the window and give Linda a nice surprise later on.
The trouble is, I'd eat them all.
What, on the way up, the liqueurs, the cherry liqueurs, all down your front? Okay. Maybe not then. Okay, this apparently is how you do see your name. You need to give StreamYard permission. Thanks, Jay, for sorting out that little technicality. English leather. I think that's the American name for imperial leather, isn't it?
Imperial leather, yes.
Brilliant icon of the 70s as well, where people were, I think, a family were in a bath together, weren't they? When that wasn't seen as a thing at all. And they decided that Bermuda looked nice. And they picked up the phone that was by the edge of the bath and told the pilot to fly them to Bermuda while soaping themselves with imperial leather. That is living the dream, isn't it? That is, to me, I forgot about my dreams that were in that department.
I never ever realised that. I never made the connection that the family were having the bath together. That is wrong on every level.
He's drawing pictures of a Turkish hammam there.
Well, let's see, because we're not the only men of sort of 50-something here. What are other people's recollections of the imperial leather? Peter, I think you're probably a bit too young, but who knows? Felicia Lenovo, that's what he meant to say, or that's what the technology deprived him of saying. Who knew in the 70s we would have phones that would spell things wrongly in 50 years' time? Amazing. Queen, the amazing.
Oh yes, Freddie.
The ultimate entertainer.
Yeah, amazing. And the film? What did you think of the film?
I hated it. I'm a
Yes.
huge Freddie fan.
I loved it. I
Yeah,
really loved it because that film made me understand one thing, right? And this is the way I see it: that the Live Aid concert, right? It was almost made for Freddie. That was his moments. That was the moment of his life, right? And when you watched it and saw it on the television and watched the film, and you realised right from the very start when he does his warm up with his voice, the day, oh, and he's warming his voice and he gets the crowd going right, and you knew something special was coming then. And now I understand a lot more about that film.
Garvo, one thing Freddie had asked before he died was, whatever you do with my rights, with my images, whatever, just don't make me boring. And these guys managed to do exactly that. They basically took an artist. I think Sacha Baron Cohen would have been a much better fit for that gig. He would have done Freddie justice. They basically went and turned Freddie into a vanilla job, so there would be Oscar nominations. And I have a huge problem. Freddie was never, and I'm a huge Freddie Mercury fan. He was never a vanilla job. Freddie was completely out there. They went and turned his life into this PG rated nonsense. I went and saw this movie with a friend of mine who basically said, all right, you know what? I know you're a huge Freddie fan. Let's go and see this. It was just drivel. It was horrible.
Now you see, I when I saw some interviews with Freddie Mercury, I was staggered at how sort of quiet and modest and sort of understated he was, because on stage he was a massive, character. But when you put him in an interview, he was very, very camp, yes, but very, very quiet, very, very well spoken, calm, collected, totally different guy. So I think maybe what they were trying to do in the film is put that side of him, so people can understand that he wasn't necessarily, the big star on stage. There was another side to him.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen, and I know this was not a movie. I hope they will make a movie one day about Freddie Mercury, not only the artist, but Freddie Mercury, the person. The problem is that this project had the entire group involved. So you had the drummer guy, and I just, these guys, I just like, from the time I've seen that movie, I just like really, really, and they're talented. They are talented musicians. From the time I've seen this movie, I don't know. It was very difficult for me. I'll tell you one thing. The first time I watched Freddie Mercury was Live Aid. I watched him as a kid, and since that time, I always felt this guy was something out there. He's just completely on a completely different planet. The way he entertained, the way he was on the stage, he just occupied the space. He just sucked up the energy around. He was just standing there. And what these guys managed to do in a movie, just completely destroy the persona, the aura that was Freddie.
But I didn't know until I watched that film that he knew that he got AIDS. Then he knew that
he didn't. By the way,
if you follow the film, that's what they reckoned, that that was his moment. So he built up for that. That was his performance.
It's a Hollywood moment. Hollywood ruins everything.
Bloody hell. Frank is being very frank tonight with his views on hip hop and also the Queen movie. So there you go. We'll complete that trilogy, or that holy trinity, with another damning indictment of something else a little later on in the show.
It's another episode of Let's Be Frank.
Let's be frank, everybody. Isn't the 70s a bit hard? That's rough. Calling him Garvo Glitter. Rolf Harris and Jimmy Savile.
No.
Kind of a little creep. Well, we can't gloss over that. And I think that was the arc of the 70s, wasn't it? Is that people, it's like the Roman Empire, isn't it? All that was good and great about a time turned into a caricature and a horror, basically. And you're absolutely right, Peter, to bring up those names, and others could be added to that horrible list. Gary,
how we didn't see it, right? Because Gary Glitter was just completely bonkers as far as I was. Jimmy Savile, from me, was creepy from a go, right? You could see it a mile off. The one I didn't really expect was Rolf Harris. That was a complete surprise to me. I never seen that coming, but that's the wrong thing to say.
Yes.
Because Rolf was probably a little hero to me. He's always seemed like an out there sort of guy, an Australian guy, an artist, a bit of a wildlife thing. And I was devastated when the news came out about him. I just never saw that one. But the other two,
that's the thing about the 70s, wasn't it? Is the fame thing. You know, it's taken another 40, 50 years for the Me Too movement to come into the public consciousness, whereby abuse of that sort of fame and power is now fully out in a way that it hasn't been for decades, is it? And this is people abusing their fame and power, essentially, isn't it? Including Rolf Harris. And I bet Terence never cites him as an inspiration anymore. You can't, can you? Frank, can you add something to that?
No.
No. Okay,
I have a question for you guys, though, and I think, Carl, you might be able to answer this. Jimmy Savile wasn't he towards the start of Top of the Pops? Wasn't he one of the few hosts that started Top of the Pops, or was he not?
Yes, he was.
Yeah, I mean, he was a mainstay of Top of the Pops at its height in the 70s when the Radio 1 DJs were there presenting it. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he was even then, because I'm a huge fan of Top of the Pops. The first time I saw Wham on Top of the Pops, I was hooked. I'm a huge George Michael fan. So the thing is, it's watching. I've seen some videos since on YouTube of Top of the Pops. And I've just seen one or two videos of Jimmy Savile. I was not sure if he was a guest or if he was a regular as a host.
He is something else. I heard a very funny, naughty clip from Irish, I think BBC Radio Belfast. Stop me if I've said this before, but they were doing an expose of Jimmy Savile, quite rightly, and then somebody tweeted in the show, and the presenter read it out in good faith and said, all this negativity about Jimmy Savile. He seemed fine to me when I met him, and in fact, he let me milk a cow in the dark, and he was a really nice guy.
Milk a cow blindfolded.
milk a cow blindfolded. That's right. And this woman read it out on air, and then they apologized later on in the show for reading it out. But it could happen to us tonight. Let's face it. In the heat of live media, let's see what pranks people come up with tonight for us. But Peter Bleach, it's a point well made, and we have covered it. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned George Michael, because George Michael is the introverted response to fame and fortune, isn't he? You know, these 70s people and these DJs, people who've been disgraced and discredited absolutely rightly, exploited their fame and fortune that was thrust upon them. Let's face it, we're a culture that does that to people. And then you've got people like George Michael who he turned it inward, and it was all too much for him. Poor guy.
It was not only too much for him. First of all, he carried that band Wham for four years. He was writing everything. Apparently, Andrew Ridgeley couldn't even play an instrument. So you had George Michael writing. He was doing everything. So he went, and then after that, he was solo. George was never ready to be a megastar that he became, and it was just, this guy was just unbelievable. He was just out of this world. He was an amazing musician. He looked like a pop star. He was giving Michael Jackson a run for his money for the longest time, but he was not ready to be a pop star. And that was the biggest thing about George.
And never got up to speed with it, right? It would appear.
Never did.
What flashed through your mind, Gary, just then?
I was just listening to Andrew Ridgeley couldn't play anything at all. No, is that true? So is it true that George Michael said to him, "Just blow this"?
Oh, God.
No, to be honest, George Michael was he got the looks, he got the charisma, he got an awesomely fantastic voice, which only goes to show that you can have it all and still not be happy.
Be miserable,
I mean,
Well, it's a lot of these artists. One of the things that I have seen similarities of George Michael is somehow with Adele. George wrote some of his best music when he was sad and he was going through a horrible time. Same with Adele. I don't know why. Some of the best music that comes out of the best album that came out of Adele was the one where she locked herself up and she would finish like 2 bottles of wine every hour or so, and wrote that amazing album while, like, the guys were like doing horrible things to her. And George, the same thing. He wrote Older, which is an amazing album. These are the kinds of things that happen to these guys. Somehow they have the talent, but they're just not ready. I was telling a friend of mine a while back that I hope Adele, and this is kind of weird. I was just like, I hope Adele does good in life, but every time she has a breakup, she writes a good album.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Wasted on me, I have to say, but let's bring it back to the battle of the decades. As far as I'm concerned, we haven't heard anything tonight to challenge the supremacy of the 70s, not just musically, but culturally. A fun decade, a dangerous decade, ups and downs, political drama, all sorts. Frank,
what do you guys think of 70s fashion? I remember my older brother used to have his flats. And he used to wear these bell bottoms, and I always used to think the bell bottoms. I remember my dad used to have his suits, and he used to wear these bell bottoms. I used to always think that they were weird looking. What do you guys think of the fashion from the 70s? What is your opinion of that?
flamboyant.
yeah,
Flamboyant. The word flamboyant. I mean, remember the big shirts with the collars and everything?
With the collar.
Yeah, but you could be walking down the stairs just after you got ready and trip, right? And you'd be gliding around forever, wouldn't you?
Look, the jokes are dreadful tonight.
All right, Doug, you give us a joke.
Yeah, come on, Doug. But David,
There is a good point. David Bowie.
David Bowie.
Come on.
The fashions were terrible, but they were bold, and that's the important thing: is having a go.
Was David Bowie going through his Thin Duke era around that time,
No,
or
that was the 80s? Aladdin Zane, Gene Genie. The best of David Bowie's style was in the 70s, without a doubt. And he managed to reinvent himself successfully and innovated throughout his whole career. But the 70s, it certainly must be the greatest time for David Bowie styling. So much diversity in the 70s. It's mind-blowing, experimental, amazingly executed, mind-blowing stuff that doesn't exist anymore. Now, I don't want to admit that it doesn't exist anymore. It's just that we haven't uncovered it, and we must. That's the point of tonight's show: is how are we going to bring the spirit back into humanity? So we're not just trudging around with masks on, dying of dullness as well as a virus potentially. Worst period of music for me was Mud, Gary Glitter, Shwaddy Waddy, T-Rex, etc. Glam rock rubbish. Fair point, Dave and Debbie. It was a bit of a pastiche, wasn't it? But I think they were like T-Rex is separate from the rest of that, I think. The jokes are dreadful tonight. I've done that. Yeah, come on, Douglas. We know you're good for a joke, so let's have a few. Frank has funky psychedelic reflections going on with his bins here, says John. It's my fault, because when I suggested to Frank that he get some ring lighting, he quite liked the idea.
He's having trouble with his ring.
His ring,
I blame this. I'll blame this on Munson.
Yeah, okay, but it was the mention of like touching up your ring, wasn't it, that really persuaded you to shell out on Amazon? But it hasn't quite worked out as we.
Look, hang on, come on. We all know that ring lighting just smooths up all those little creases away, doesn't it? Just beautifies the face.
The face, Frank, the face. I used to live near Barnes, says Peter Bleach. I know exactly where Peter's referring to. And you'd always get bits of hair they had wrapped around the tree that Mark Bolan wrapped around his mini around. Yeah, with the wonderful other icon of the times, Gloria. What's she called? Gloria, his model girlfriend. who was in the car at the time, who I think survived that crash. He didn't survive it. She did. And there was some sort of controversy about what had actually gone on there. But it's still a shrine 50 years later in Barnes in southwest London there. Amazing. 90s grunge was the best.
There is no best. There is no. You dip in, you dip out. That's what it is. There's no. It's all good and it's all bad. You just pick what you like. That's the best way to do it, guys.
I don't know, Gary. You can't dip into certain things. Like there's only so much dipping you can do, and especially when it's bad music.
Yeah, but I cannot say that I say from the 90s.
Look at Carl. Look at the smile on Carl's face.
It wasn't all crap in the 90s. There's got to be music there I liked. There's probably something in the 20s. There's always something for everybody. You don't have to like it all, but there are certain things that you will like, and that's fine.
Were you just trying to justify putting an Al Jolson track on a mixtape there?
Say again, sorry.
Were you justifying putting an Al Jolson track on a mixtape? I love that 30s music.
I tell you what, I do not mind Al Jolson. I will listen to a bit of Al Jolson. Fine.
Up next to Dave Grohl with a bit of 90 with some Teen Spirit.
Bit of Al Jolson rap.
It could be what's it called? Sound Clash mix up. Here's a secret that Douglas is letting out of the bag tonight. A DJ on independent radio in the 80s. Tell us more, Doug. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Look, your man Joel. Rappers ain't bad either. LL Cool J, Dr. Dre, Eminem, Snoop Dogg. Joel, there's a surprise. Happy New Year from Karen Heller. Good evening to you, Karen. I think you're new to the Expat Man Cave. Probably gone already. Dave and Debbie, Bad Company, Free, the Eagles, Hendrix, my faves.
Yes.
Yeah, for you and for Frank. Gary, I think that would be
Bad Company. Oh, yes.
Ticking some boxes there, right?
I'll go with Eagles and Hendrix.
Yeah, all right. Detroit sounds anyway. I was into Detroit house.
Yes.
Detroit house music.
Yes.
That's not in the same league as Imagine. That's a cultural thing, isn't it? That's the sound of a nightclub, a club culture, but awesome nonetheless. And coming out of Detroit, which or is he talking about Motown? I don't know.
He's talking about Motown, I think.
Yeah, I thought Motown, Detroit.
I was talking about 80s house music from Detroit. All right, but yes, and I am a Motown fan, absolutely. NY Unix Guru. I miss my Panasonic 2-to-loop tube radio whilst listening to all the AM hits. Now, I don't understand that reference. I'm thinking that might be a music center or something like that, listening to music in a really tinny sort of AM wavelength. Anyone else?
No, I can't comment on that one. I don't know.
You didn't have a 2-to-loop tube?
No, I'm afraid not.
Frank, did you have a 2-to-loop tube?
No, I'm trying to figure out what a 2-to-loop tube radio is, but it sounds kind of kinky. I like it.
I might have to get a picture of that and risk my search history again because of this show. There are flying cars now. I think that's just John referring to Portuguese driving. Victoria Benson, the 70s had the best. Yes.
Stevie Wonder, another great one.
Yes. But make-out music, which was the best decade for that? I think 70s/80s. Led Zeppelin make-out music, unless that's not. No.
Marvin Gaye. I understand.
There's another tragic character, Marvin Gaye. Brilliant, fantastic voice.
Brilliant.
Doomed to an end.
Yes. Yeah.
Think of 70s. Think of the catalog Stevie Wonder put out. Some of his best music came out during the 70s, I believe. That double album that he put out. It's just
Talking Book.
Pardon?
Talking Book. Are we talking about Stevie Wonder?
Exactly, Talking Book. There was another album that he put out that was just unbelievable. I've got it on record. It's just some of the most amazing music came out, and Marvin Gaye, absolutely. Before his dad kind of went Looney Tunes on him.
I'm a great Stevie Wonder fan, and I think he just got the most wonderful gift. And I actually sent him a birthday present. I sent him a cheese grater, and then he wrote me back and said that was the most violent book he'd ever read.
Doug, you're right. Doug,
I swear to God, you have just proven Doug so right. Doug is listening to this, and he's going, "These guys are killing me tonight."
what is it, Gary? You've changed, man. It's a New Year's resolution to be a bit more edgy in the man cave.
Oh, why not? Hey,
Yes, it's working.
all this pent up emotion.
It's coming out. It's very welcome. This is, in case you are tuned in for the first time, this is the virtual local where we kick back, chew the fat, shoot the breeze, etc., like being down the pub, except there are three blokes who are louder than everybody else. But we can change that. We can put the link and you can join us on the screen if you're thinking, oh, this is just doing my head in. Doug, if you want to come on and do some 80s style shtick with a few old 80s jokes from independent radio, I would love to have you beside us here doing that. It'd be awesome. It's true.
I'll tell you guys one thing. I have never seen this side of Garbo. Maybe it's because it's the first of this year. I have never seen this side of Garbo. And I want to encourage him to keep doing this, because if he's got jokes like this,
it might have something to do with it.
Oh, this is beautiful. This is amazing.
What was
Garbo, keep drinking that. Whatever you're drinking, it's working for me.
It's rum, Frank.
Oh, it's rum?
Say no more.
Guys, question.
Rockstar, you.
Mentioned it tonight. Country music. How do we feel about country music?
We don't.
Frank?
I'll go with Dolly Parton. I'll go with Kenny Rogers. I'll go with who else can I go? I'll go with Johnny Cash. I'm a huge fan of Johnny Cash. But
so Carl, you can actually say there is not one country music song you've ever liked.
No, I can't say that. I love the Dixie Chicks.
There you go. See, it proves my point. There's something to everybody.
Dixie Chicks or Dixie Cups?
Dixie Chicks. I don't know what the other thing is. I imagine that's the
joke.
But I do like country and western occasionally, but there is. If you think, Frank, that's Italian music. That's Italian music made for Hollywood, I think. This is true. Carl and Aguardente don't mix. I went into a new bar, which I want to mention tonight because I found a wine shop and tapas bar in my local town, and I'm so delighted. And I went in there, and I was trying to be cool. I tied the dog up to a tree outside, came in, young lady serving in there, and I pointed to the top shelf like you do. Give me a CREF. And I got an aguardente and a massive, generous shot of it. And it was burning me as it was going down. But I didn't let on, obviously, in front of the young lady behind the bar. And I think I kind of asserted myself as a connoisseur of these things. And I'll be back. I think she'll remember me.
Can you give me the look you gave her as you left, like the reassuring look? Oh, that one. Exactly.
Roger Moore. Roger Moore coming up.
Yes.
That would see both things.
That would be the Munsonator look. That would be the look that I'll be back.
Which sometimes is associated with walking into the door frame. On this occasion, I didn't do that. I was able to compose myself and walk through the door without touching either side of it. And I think she was impressed.
Oh, I would be.
There was a lot of reference there if you're listening to what he was saying, right? Because he was saying he pointed to the top shelf, yeah? He didn't actually specify what that was. And then he said he had a massive shot.
It's one of those Terry Wogan little stories.
And I had a massive shot.
And I got back to Mrs. Munson and she said, did you have a nice evening? I said, yes. I went in. It was a very helpful young lady. And when I pointed to the top shelf, she gave me a massive shot. But then I got a slap on the face for some reason. Victoria Benson says, back when guys had $10,000 stereo systems and speakers. Oh, yeah. And black light posters with black lights just for the express purpose of making out. Those were the days. Yes. These are happy memories. But I think that's 80s, isn't it? When it was the really expensive hi-fi systems, right?
Ooh, come on,
I gotta say something. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but you must be because you worked in the industry for so long. I bought about 2 years ago, I spent about $2,000, I think a bit more than $2,000, on this Technics record player, MK something that all the DJs use.
Yeah, the 1200, yeah.
Yeah, 1,200. So I bought that one, and I actually bought it from some guy in the UK. And by the time I was done with everything, and the sound is obviously amazing. And by the time I was done with everything, it cost me around 2,000 to 3,000. But it's all worth it. People spending that kind of money on good sound is all worth it, because that thing is a tank. It will not let me go. I know I will have it for the rest of my life. It's an amazing piece of Japanese ingenuity. It's beautiful.
You still got your 1200?
Yes, I do.
Oh, excellent. Very good. No, I sold mine.
I'm actually, as a matter of fact, I need your help when I bring it from Canada over here. I'll need your help with like setting it up, because I'm like thinking of getting like these amazing speakers. I'm going to get like a very nice bass. It's going to be amazing. We're going to do some amazing music in my wherever man cave that I set up.
I love the sound of that. What I'm thinking is, when Victoria says guys would spend a lot of money to get the ultimate sort of make-out setup. So this is the man cave going back a few decades, isn't it? So you didn't have a man cave. You weren't on your own. You made a den in which you would invite your
victims.
It's not a word I was reaching for, Gary.
Garbo.
Your suitors. Should we go with suitors? Or your potential beloveds.
Okay.
Into the so you're a bit like a weaver bird. You know how the weaver bird constructs a very elaborate nest and invites the female in, and she looks at the quality of his workmanship, so to speak, and then and based on that, we'll make a decision as to whether she will deliver eggs in that same place.
Carol, it's
He's on the pirate juice, isn't he? He's definitely the pirate.
Oh dear.
So, but I'm thinking that you probably didn't need to spend $10,000 with the graphic equalizer with the LED, the red line of graphic equalizer LEDs, because I had one of those as well. I think most girls, women, who I would have invited back to my man cave of the times would have been quite happy with the dance set. With a record player where you ideally you don't want to be getting up every 5 minutes, or if you've got a 12-inch on at a certain part of the evening, you don't want to be getting up, do you, to put another 12-inch in on.
Must be very, very deflating when a lady comes back to your place and looks at your equipment and said, "Is that it?"
Exactly. You say, I've spent $10,000 on this, and all you really needed was a music center, and you cock the arm back. You know how you used to stack all the vinyl on top,
Yeah.
but if you cock the arm back, it would just play the same one over and over again. That's what you need in a makeout situation, isn't it? Depending on your skills in that department, obviously. An extended remix.
Most of us did not have the same skills you've got.
No.
Clearly.
Clearly. I remember karate. Is this a wind up? Because the Green Hornet is a cartoon superhero, not an aftershave, right?
I don't remember an aftershave Green Hornet.
No, me neither.
No, there wasn't. That is a wind up.
Yeah, and NY Unix Goo is winding us up there. Valerie Leon. Does that mean anything to anybody? I think that might be a tag to get someone else to tune in, which is very good of you, Paul. Stereo here in the house were never that expensive, but my father and I do prefer the Japanese stereos for sure. What I've noticed, Joel, in Portugal, and here, given that this is the Expat Man Cave for Portugal, you will still see like a Hitachi music center from 1987, and the Portuguese owner of it will still want €200 for it. I've noticed on OLG or something like that, and that's without the stylus. And Batman was big.
I've seen them wanting to charge about 600 €600 for a Sony Trinitron from the 80s.
Yeah, I've noticed this. The Portuguese do like to keep their value within their old domestic products, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
one way of putting it. I think NY Unix Guru is winding us up, taking advantage of our steady inebriation here, trying to pretend that Batman was an aftershave. We're not falling for it. I didn't have Green Hornet aftershave or Batman aftershave, NY Unix Guru. I don't know where you're taking us with that. Maybe that's leading to a more elaborate pun or something. Hey, Frank, the ring lights reflected in your eyes are completely hypnotizing.
That is the entire intention, Victoria. I'll keep doing this every show.
And you know what? If you had a 10,000 stereo and the ring lighting, I think the lady would be putty in your hand.
It will be disco floor. It will be good. I'd like that.
Disco floor. Okay. Lol says NY Unix Guru. I think, yeah, winding us up. Gary is doing impersonations of Robert De Niro and Ronin.
Oh, yeah.
What do we think?
Garbo, give us that little smirk. Do one of those. Do the De Niro thing.
Oh no!
Talking to me.
De Niro's the hero. I can't.
Talking to me.
De Niro is the man.
That's a great compliment. Douglas says women love my unreliability. God, we're way behind on these comments because we were talking about the merits of the reliable man, weren't we?
Yeah.
We should enter this sort of territory actually to try and understand the fairer sex on a Friday night. So women do like Douglas to mess them around, by the sound of it. Let's carry on. Oh, Valerie Leon was the girl in the high karate adverts. We'll find a picture, Jim. That's fantastic.
Yes,
I also hated glam rock.
I was like,
Frank's got to have a fight.
He got up very suddenly then, didn't he? I wonder if it's something he ate. Picasso and Aguardente is whiskey in Portugal, or, for example, is like the Russian vodka. Absolutely, yeah. Thank you, Marcos, for that. And we should do a show powered entirely by Aguardente to see what happens. Lol from Safari, Fleetwood Mac rumors. I think that's going to get a nod from Gary.
Yes.
What an interesting. I mean, didn't they sum up all that was wonderful and wild and wrong about the 70s as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I read something the other day, and I can't remember. It may have been Stevie Nicks because there was a lot of band incest going on in there.
Yeah.
But she got a boyfriend to sing on stage with about how shit he was.
Yeah, yeah. That's the way to do it, isn't it?
I mean, that's rock and roll, isn't it? Really.
He abused her privilege, and can you imagine? Maybe he didn't know, and he's halfway through the song thinking, "Hold on a minute."
I was thinking, "Oh, this is about me."
Yeah, this is about me.
Oh no,
the show must go on.
That was pretty shit, really, wasn't I?
Now, John Cunningham, comment from John. Do respect John's views on music and politically. In fact, most of your views, John. We're on the same page, aren't we? Devil's advocate here. A lot of the 70s were utter shite, musically, politically, culturally. Yes, John. And therein might lie the secret of the 70s, is that it was full on. It was full on in every direction. And that's what we need. We are too careful in our current age to be correct and right and appropriate and non-offensive and all these sorts of things which make us boring, which you couldn't say the 70s were boring, could you? They were all over the place. And you're absolutely right to make that comment. I hope Frank's all right. I received multiple copies of Fleetwood Mac's Rumours album from multiple centres for my 16th birthday. Damn it, now I gave away my age. That's lovely. Were they sort of romantic offerings, Victoria? Or were they... Because often it was lovely, wasn't it, when older folks would go to a record shop and say, I'm buying a record. I need to buy the latest hit from the hit parade for a young person I know. No, come on, Frank. Rami Malek nailed Freddie.
A 4'2" guy does not nail Freddie.
What are we talking about here? Oh, Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
Come on, get with it, Carl.
Carl, come on.
I mean, come on. That could mean so many things. To be honest,
it could mean a lot of things. I know.
So I didn't watch the movie. I never will.
Good job, Joel.
Okay, we are going back in the comments here. I mean, Bohemian Rhapsody was an amazing movie. And
I think so.
I'm a free girl, and that's where it happened. Phenomenal. Victoria, Philly has so much affection in my heart musically. One of Elton John's greatest classics, Are You Ready for Love, wouldn't be the track it is without his visit to Philly and working with Tom Bell. I hate Sacha Baron Cohen. I watched the movie that is not Borat. What's the other one last night? I was laughing out loud.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, he would have ruined it for me. I would have never seen the movie if he played Freddie Mercury. I mean, that would be a Marmite choice, Frank, to be fair. You wouldn't be able to not see Borat at times, would you? Or Ali G whilst he was doing it. I hope I'm not incognito anymore. You're not, Douglas. You are here, and we would welcome you onto the screen. I think John Cunningham, great shift in perspective. The music at this point had become stale, and punk heavy metal was born. There was an unwinnable war and a heroin crisis. Finally, culturally, this is a decade of the stereotype is entertainment. That is a good point, but I think it's what I'm saying is that it was a full-on decade, and I think we need full-on again. We need to stop being so scared and measured and bloody dull. Basically, Peter Bleach makes a great point, and that was the point I think that's being made there. Stereotype is entertainment, and that is what it is. Roman Empire stuff. A girl in my fifth form was invited to Top of the Pops quite regularly, and she told her friends why. Not nice. Indeed, Paul. Grim. Absolutely grim. I was there. I've been on Top of the Pops, been on Top of the Pops, and I'm unscathed. I can report to you. Oh my God, we've got so many comments. Frank, can I go through the comments?
Go.
R&B was ridiculous in the 70s. Al Green, Earth, Wind and Fire.
Yes.
Fire. My God. And back to punk with Clash. The 70s are unparalleled for talent and diversity. Absolutely right.
Absolutely.
Pearl Jam forever. Oh, come on, Marcus. That's a crowd pleaser for Frank, I think, and maybe Gary. No,
not Pearl Jam. Take it or leave it.
He's a youngster, isn't he? This one's for Frank. Rush. Neil Peart, yeah?
Yes, Neil Peart.
70s hits were the best. 70s, hell no, says Joel. Fashion.
Journey. No one's mentioned Journey.
You've done that. Don't know about that, Carl. A lot more happened in the 60s. Okay. 80s fashion is an oxymoron. Awful. Yeah, guilty as charged. Peter Frampton. Frampton Comes Alive, 1970s. Yes. Sorry, guys, I'm such a massive music hound. It's ridiculous. And the 70s were phenomenal. I do think it's the best musical decade. 60s were amazing, but something happened with it's almost like a political parallel, isn't it? Is that the money of the record companies did make something good, and then typically with capitalism turned it to crap. I think that's what happened in the 70s. And the 70s were phenomenal. A decade for music like no other for diversity and talent. Absolutely. Okay, off for some shut-eye night, fellas. Oh, Neil went ages ago. Sorry, Neil. That's a shame. 70s politics from an American perspective. Watergate, Nixon, the Iran hostage situation from Jim. Yeah, indeed. John, 70s fashion. Yeah. I think we've covered that amply, haven't we? It was horrible, but it was bold. Frampton Comes Alive. How about Bachman Turner Overdrive? You ain't seen nothing yet, mate. The best music is written by codependent after their narcissist discards them. Yep, Adele and Sam Smith. It's true, isn't it? I mean, so much artistry is based on pain, and then we pay for it as if to make it okay. 70s were a terrible decade. Economic slump. Oh, this is log 45. 70s were a terrible decade. Economic slump, galloping inflation, bad diets, poor service in stores and from companies, artificial materials like plastics, flagrant racism, sexism, and homophobia on TV. Oh.
Wow. Are you reminding us of the current times?
Well, we'll come back to that, Frank, because, yes, I do understand that comment. I really do. And when I was more of a virtue signaler, right on kind of guy, I would have said, yes, absolutely. The 70s were disgusting. But actually, given the decades we've just had, I see it in a different way, honestly. Yeah. You and your ring lighting, Carl, yes. Early 70s on my Panasonic. We've got another mention of the Tootaloop radio. We've got to find out what that is. Hey, Peter Bleach, did you ever get the Cafe More for the tribute band every year on Mark's anniversary? Oh, for Mark Bolan there. Neil Perkins, no double dipping, gather. Okay. I wondered how long it would take for that. That's why I was laughing when someone mentioned dipping before. Rap, the only word in the English language with a
John, I love you, man. John is the guy.
You need to be re-educated, you two. Tamla Motown and Northern Soul absolutely is where Neil's at, and that's understandable, isn't it, from Neil? I like to listen to Dolly Parton, but only one of her songs, Jolene. Also, Nancy Sinatra, Bang Bang. Okay. Motown Stacks, Muscle Shoals, etc. Carl, though the latter Detroit house sounds were also brilliant.
Yes.
Dave and Debbie Wino, what was the first single you ever bought? Excellent question.
Yes.
Please those in the comments, everybody. We'll come back to that. Mine, sorry to say, chirpy, cheap. Think middle of the road. Yeah. And we're not always responsible for our first music choice, but it's a good question nonetheless. Also, the 40s era of music isn't bad to listen to. That era between the end of the Second World War and the beginning of the Cold War. Yeah, of course. And I guess it's all a reflection of politics, isn't it? And sociological influences. About that pick, no one wants to talk about that, about what went wrong since the 70s. The thing is, there is a whole different vibe nowadays, especially with the youngsters woke. The thing is, there were less people and less environmental destruction issues, less wealth. So only a select few could afford the big motorbikes for travels through desert. It's just not the same world anymore. It's true. Yeah, well said, Jay. We're also more conscious about the environment and not hurting anyone. That's the biggest difference, right? Yeah, good point, Jay. But have we not gone a bit too far with that? Would be my contention. 70s fashion is the entire inspiration for the boho interior design and fashion styles that are happening now and have been happening for the last 10 years. Yep. Led Zepp, Kashmir. Do you want to? Fulfilling this first finale. That's a full-on kind of concept album thing, isn't it? Triple gate sleeve and all that sort of business. Stevie Wonder fulfilling Stevie fulfilling this first finale, 1974. We're sorry, we're so behind with these comments. Led Zeppelin, Physical Graffiti was bomb, but that was the late 70s. Just the Chicks now, due to the they have had to move with the times, haven't they? The Dixie Chicks, because they first came out with one of the Gulf Wars, didn't they? Saying they were really pacifist, and then they got a bollocking from their record company, and then got behind George Bush, I think, and now they've made another political move. They're just the Chicks. Fascinating.
Oh, so they're not Dixie Dicks anymore.
No, you can't have that anymore, Frank. Oh hell. Remembering Stadium Rock. Yes, Boston, more than a feeling.
Oh, yes.
Victoria, did you stand in a stadium whilst Boston were playing More Than a Feeling? That's as iconic a moment as Woodstock, I would say. Lynyrd Skynyrd, Freebird, yeah, going to a gig.
Victoria's my hero.
Isn't she just? BTO, Bachman Turner Overdrive,
yes.
And drinking Molson's? Drinking, is that a kind of beer?
Molson is a Canadian beer, Canadian brand. Molson and Labatt's.
Whilst you're listening to that rock music over there in North America, Green Hornet was a TV show with Bruce Lee, and it must have had its associated aftershave. I stand corrected. Supertramp.
Supertramp.
Pouring in 10cc Boys Don't Cry. Pilot. Oh, it's magic. Yep, remember that? Never
Yes.
Batman, the TV show. So he must have had his own. He must have had his own fragrance. Thanks, Paul. It's the ring lighting. Does it every time. It's still rocking. A 5.1 PC cinema sound system. Oh, that's going 20 years in my hand, and I bought it secondhand. Still goes full blast. Works like new. Yeah, not in good getting rid of this for sure. So still worth 500 euros. On
good man.
Hold on. 12-inch talk here coming up. A lot less of a 12-inch and more of an EP. That's what I've always said, and it's never failed me. That it's Frank. No, he's perfectly well. I think you might be referring to the people in his basement, who we can also assure you are alive and well. Happy New Year, all from Beth Mitchell. Hey, Beth, how are you tonight? How's everyone in the Mitchell household? John Cunningham, behave calm. I can't even remember what that's about now. Yes, Gary, Stevie Nicks completely abused Lindsey Buckingham and got him to sing about it. What a biatch for doing that. You got to laugh, haven't you, as well? Rush, awesome in concert.
Yeah.
You can probably enjoy that on YouTube now, can't you? 80s turned into MTV, Duran, and all that weird stuff. Yeah, that was the beginning of the end in many ways, wasn't it, of musicians making decent money, I suppose. Log 45 didn't do enough drugs, says Sandra Marks Webster. a bit of in-comment heckling there. Great question. My first single was Gene Ginny. That's very respectable. Well done, John. Steve Perry was phenomenal.
Yes.
And he is, of course, of Portuguese extraction, Steve Pereira. The family name got changed from Pereira to Perry, as often is the case, I think, in America. Ticket to Ride was the best ever beat combo. Yep, okay. Gutted that I didn't really appreciate the 70s. Went to see Madness and Bob Marley with my older siblings, says Peter. Way more excited about the former. Yeah, I saw Madness at the Hammersmith Odeon when I was 16. That was amazing. The time you're a teenager is special, absolutely. And bringing us up to date with the comments. MTV now sucks. More soap operas than actual music. Yeah, I can't imagine watching MTV now. And on Richmond Hill, we did have Peter Green as the local tramp on Richmond Hill. Wish I had known more about him. Peter Green of Fleetwood Mac. Is that right? Did he go homeless for a while then? Wow. Okay. Just sitting around chasing the pigeons away while sat on a bench. Amazing. I agree, Carl. The decade gone has just shown us how we need to be more relaxed. My father only said to me last night, we didn't expect to have so much because I was unaware of it, what everyone was doing. Maybe the 70s, in short, was a decade for living your own life for yourself. So let's see what Dad says there, because that's the wisdom we were looking at, right? We didn't expect to have so much because I was unaware of what everyone was doing. Yes, the comparison age, isn't it? We're all thinking, I think it's a very individualistic age that we've been through, right? The iPhone, the iPlayer, all that I, me, and then comparison through social media. That's not a good recipe for life, is it? Gentlemen.
Well, sound overall has been compacted, right? The problem is that what we are trying to do is we are trying to compact something that cannot be compacted. We've taken a lot of beautiful sound and we want everything in this little small gadget and we want to be able to listen to it. It doesn't work that way. And one of the biggest disservices to music has, once again, I'm going to go back to this, has been this digital bebop sound, just artificial. For me, the biggest thing is if you cannot play an instrument, you're not an artist. As far as you are concerned, all you are is a magician. Or you're just doing a few things. You can flip a few records. I never understood the idea behind DJs. Why are people lining up to go and see DJs? Why are people lining up to go and see guys who flip records one after another? I just don't understand that. Unless it's an artist playing an instrument, unless it's someone performing, proper performance, I just don't understand this. There is a world for DJs where they're on radio. It's their personality along with the music, and I love that. But the thing is, going and listening to a 20-year-old punk going and mixing music from the 70s on a stage and trying to look like a rock star, that is disgraceful to me.
Disgraceful. So there's the third thing. What were the three things? So he's assailed rap music, generally wholesale. Now DJ. Now the phenomenon of the DJ cult. That was the second.
Yes.
And the third. What was the one in the middle? Oh, Freddie. The travesty of Freddie Mercury's portrayed by a rubbish actor and production in the movie.
I thought you were not listening to me. This is amazing, Carl.
This is my job. I'm all over it. And I'm glad to see this little break has made us all a little bit more fiery in the belly, I think, because Garvo, we've seen a different side of Garvo tonight, haven't we?
Well, Garvo today looks like he looks like a character from a movie, man. He looks dangerous today.
He does look dangerous. It's true.
Hey, I like that. I can go with that. Yeah. I'll have a piece like Mrs. Wembley.
Yeah.
So, which were your first singles then, fellas? That was a question, a very good question that was asked by Dave.
I was never a single buyer. I actually can't remember buying a single. I'd like to save up for the albums. I can definitely remember my first album.
Go on.
And that was 1977, and that was Out of the Blue by ELO.
Very good.
And it was on blue vinyl.
Blue vinyl, of course, absolutely.
And then that was followed because I had to save up for it, and I think it was 1978, which was Jeff Wayne's musical version of the War of the Worlds, which is still a bloody marvelous album. And if you listen to it now,
yes, who would have ever thought? Yes. What the opening line?
In the last years of the 19th century, that human affairs were being watched from the timeless worlds of space.
Yes. He was in the room. That was uncanny, Gary. Frank, first single, first album.
Wasn't a first album. First album. My dad bought me my first album. 1982, 1983. Thriller.
Oh, very good.
First album ever. For the original Michael Jackson. The entire album my dad got me, and I think I played it till it was just completely dead.
Chamon.
First album I ever got. Love it. I remind him almost like every few months we talk about stuff. I remind him because he had gone to the Philippines and he was traveling back and he got me that album and he got me a red shirt and I remember both of them. So I always remind him of both of them.
Beautiful. Your first single?
First single would have been Billie Jean.
Wow. Is Wannabe starting something on the Thriller album?
Yes.
Because the other question we can ask is, what's your first profound clubbing experience? And that's what I love about this little thread here is that you've got the voice of Richard Burton on War of the Worlds. You have the voice of Vincent Price on Thriller. And if you're on Spotify, you can hear Rod Temperton telling the story, the writer of Thriller, telling the story of how he wrote the words for Vincent Price, who was a friend of Quincy Jones's husband. Quincy Jones's wife. And the call was made, could Vincent come in and do Quincy Jones? I just, it doesn't fit quite, does it, that Quincy Jones would have a husband? Not that there's anything wrong with that, but for Quincy, it just wouldn't work. He was married to Miss Sweden, I think, wasn't he, at one point?
I'll throw an interesting argument in there. My older brother, he's a huge fan of the 70s, of course. He always tells me, and we had this back and forth, and I kind of now I'm kind of understanding what he's talking about. He says Michael Jackson's best album was not Thriller; it was Off the Wall.
True.
And Rod Temperton actually wrote, I think, Off the Wall. He wrote Off the Wall, and there was one or two other tracks in there. And every time I go and listen to Off the Wall, I kind of get what my brother is saying now.
He wrote Thriller as well. I mean, he was a remarkable person. He was called the Invisible Man, and he was one of Quincy Jones's go-to guys for writing. They wrote stuff for George Benson, Chaka Khan, incredible writer, and he was from Hull and wrote for Heatwave, but that was his first outing, was with Heatwave as the writer. But anyway, you've got Richard Burton on with a wonderful vocal on War of the Worlds. You've got Vincent Price on Thriller. But then I'm thinking, in terms of what was our first clubbing experience or our first gig, these are other questions, aren't they, for us as we look at what the best decades were. I remember being in a wine bar when I was quite young and probably shouldn't have been in a wine bar maybe. And a girl saying, should we go clubbing? And it was just a beautiful, heady experience of going to a nightclub. And I want to be starting something came on in that club. I think it was the Venue in Victoria in London. And and I was young, and there was smoke, and there was lasers, and there was want to be starting something. And I can remember it. My heart beats in my chest to this day.
Oh.
Just that experience as a moment of like, wow, this is what can happen. When you say, shall we go to a nightclub? And it sounds quite lame in a way that it was Michael Jackson, after going from a wine club.
Well, it was I would imagine it would be in the 70s. It would also be the soundtrack from Saturday Night Fever, right? Because
too young for that. But yeah, that would have been amazing. That would have been amazing.
That would have been amazing, is because the entire this is Bee Gees were huge, but that album still, that soundtrack still is an amazing soundtrack.
Oh, without a doubt, because the Bee Gees are incredible, aren't they? The Bee Gees,
yes.
And Robin Stigwood. It's the people behind it. That's why Michael Jackson is so good. He would not be the artist he was without Quincy Jones, no doubt about it. John Cunningham agrees that Off the Wall was the better album. I think Vincent Price pre-recorded a metal album or re-recorded a metal album in recent years. I can imagine. Rubbish actor. You've not watched Mr. Robot, then, Carl. What did I say?
You were talking about Rami Malek. John and I are in the same camp, man. Just take it easy. Take it easy on my friend John over here.
You're both camp, man. ELO, you might hate me for that one, but I love ELO. The Jungle. We're not to win.
I love you, Victoria. You're mine.
Victoria is another rock star. I love Victoria too.
And who knew that she could go from judging a beard competition into being such an authority on 70s music?
Victoria, what do you think of my beard? I need your feedback on my beard, Victoria. Carl Munson does not like my beard. He thinks I'm a wild man now.
I didn't say I didn't like it. I think you look great. I can't.
Frank.
It's a good look in it, Gary.
I think so. I think that's going places.
Is it? All right. Okay. All right. No problem. I'll be a wild man then.
And guys, while we're on ELO, can I share a little moment with you? A little personal, just between us three. Right, ELO, because the man himself, Jeff Lynne, right, son of Birmingham, where I come from, loved the music, loved the group. But when they were ultra famous, right, I could never afford the ticket to go and see them live. Not until, what was it, 2017 did I actually get to see him live, right? And he came out on stage and the guy hadn't changed. He was still Jeff Lynne from 1978. And it was incredible. And he just did absolutely brilliantly. And it was such a humbling experience, right, just to sit there and watch him after all those years, right? And his voice hasn't changed, his looks haven't changed. And I remember just sitting there watching him, and in which the bit in between, because he's never a great talker, he's never a very verbose sort of person, and he's just kind of filling in between the songs. And I hear a little voice from the crowd shout out. It wasn't me. He said, "We love you, Jeff," and he goes, "I love you too." And it was lovely. It was a lovely moment. It was just a lovely just gig. It was just brilliant, and that was in Birmingham.
Well, I think it would be lovely if someone could shout out from the comments, "I love you, Gary," so that Gary can shout that back.
Love you too. Yeah, it was a wonderful night. Wonderful night.
I love you, Gary.
I love you too, Frank. Especially that beard.
We would be remiss if we did not mention the Elvis of the 70s.
Costello.
Let me see. Who was that then? Was that Elvis?
Presley.
Yes. There were two Elvises of the 70s, but I see where you've gone with that.
Yes, it's the Elvis of the 70s that actually has now become a caricature for some reason. And I never appreciate it because I'm a huge Elvis fan as well. As a matter of fact, we had been planning to go to Graceland every year, and we never got the chance. I know we will, and I want to go there for like 2-3 days. And now they've turned it into an entire like entertainment park, kind of an area. And I so want to go there because I'm a huge Elvis fan, and I feel that the Elvis of the 70s, the way what they've turned him into, is just a bit of a joke. Elvis was huge, man. Elvis, he inspired.
Well, he was like 23 stone, wasn't he?
That was the problem. He was huge.
Yeah, well, it's the peanut butter and banana sandwiches, man. What do you want on the guy? He's gonna die on the toilet. What do you want?
It's the same as what we were talking about before, wasn't it? It was the price of fame. And this is thrust upon people, and each of these great artists has their way of dealing with it. And in many ways, the Elvis of the 70s might be the perfect metaphor or story of what the 70s were about. How it sort of started well, included some great moments, and then sort of finished very badly.
A little less conversation, a little more action.
I was wondering when Frank's Elvis impersonation was going to come in. Thank you for that, Frank.
Frank, I want to thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I feel obliged to give it a go now, but I'm not going to. Doreen is hey Doreen, can you do an Elvis impersonation? Anyone who fancies themselves an Elvis impersonator can join us on the screen. Love Carole King's Tapestry album, me too. And that was when possibly people started writing more honestly. Yeah, I mean, I know, you know, the non-commercial genres, people have always written honestly about their experiences, but in the world of pop music, something happened in the 70s as well, didn't it? That paved the way for Adele to be talking about her heartbreaks and so on. And Carole King's Tapestry album is full of that, is it not? Jackson 5's ABC was the first that I purchased as a child. That's proper cred, that is. Kudos, as you say in North America, our North American friends.
Oh, Carl. I like this. You're becoming North American. I'm leaving some influence on this track.
You are definitely. I say rock star as well at home here. That slipped into my vocabulary. MTV's heyday was the 80s, but Joel's not happy about it at all. He just thinks it's like the History Channel, all conspiracy theories and aliens more than actual history. But then again, I'm curious about aliens, but not. That's another whole episode of the Man Cave, isn't it? But not to a point that takes an entire day of TV program. Okay, so sometime in the future, we do have to do. Have you seen a ghost? Do you believe in extraterrestrials? Man Cave. I think that'll be really good. ELO. We've done that one. That was the Smell of Adam West. We're now interested in Victoria. So it must have had his own. Yeah. What's happened to Batman now? How he's caricatured in the Lego movies is hilarious, isn't it? And quite accurate, I think, as well. What about, this is for you, Frank. What about scratch DJs, Frank? They make an instrument with their decks with an E.
I don't know. I was never a fan of scratch DJs. It just didn't work for me. For me, it was always about DJs. They were supposed to do a specific job. They were supposed to work with the crowd. They were supposed to understand what was happening and then bring them up. I never believed that DJs would earn $50 per a pop to go like a rock concert, for people to go in an arena and watch a moron standing right in front of like three little whatever and spin his discs. I'm appalled. It's I love DJs, but the thing is, this is not what music. It's about instruments. It's got nothing to do with spinning discs.
I think right now, this is my own personal take on this, is whether you see music as being created or manufactured. And I think that if you go back to like the Stock Aitken and Waterman era, right, that was very manufactured music. And it was out and it was sold and this, and it's the differential. Music is, it comes from within. It's generated there.
It has to be. It's the emotion. The thing is, Garvo, and the thing is, I don't want to keep kicking DJs in the nuts. That's not the idea here. My thing here is that I believe if you are an artist, that usually means that you are going to perform. You are good with your vocals. You are good with some kind of instrument or a combination of all. If you are going to go and watch Prince, one of my biggest regrets is actually a year before Prince died, he was going around in his concert where he was just with himself and the piano, and it was the Purple Tour, something like this. And Rachel and I, we really wanted to go and see this. And Prince, the magician that he was, and the amazing artist that he was, we wanted to go and see him. And this is what you go to see. My biggest problem is that, personal opinion again, I will not go to see a DJ spin records and pay $50-$80 for a guy to do that. I think I do a reasonable job. And
I can understand that, Frank, because he's not really.
And there are some other people who are much better at it than I am. However, it's not something that is a concert for me. I don't know.
I think really, what you're saying here, right? You haven't really kicked DJs in the nuts. You've actually castrated them by the sound of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have, and I don't want to offend them. I don't want to offend them. There's no offense here. I just believe that if you can't play an instrument and if you can't sing, then F off and leave us alone.
Well, that's very radical.
You don't want to offend them, but F off and leave us alone. Okay. Frank, have a great friend. This is referring to your farting symphony comment I think you made earlier on. Drink it, Frank. Swallow. Frank, have a great friend who is a singer but also a sound wizard. He suffered the same prejudice doing his music degree. The voice was not considered an instrument. And there's a place for that. And I'm sure that was part of the 70s where people were experimental. ELO were good. There were hundreds of good songs and bands back then. How about the Hollies, Air That I Breathe? It's a nice enough tune.
Yes.
Vincent Price, re-recording. Doreen Ray's. Other favourites include Aerosmith, Al Green, Diana Ross, Earth, Wind and Fire, Marvin Gaye and Donna Summer.
Who doesn't like a bit of Earth, Wind and Fire? Come on now, guys. Can you sit still? Do you remember?
Exactly.
I just realized something, Carl. By the way, I at no point did I mean any kind of offense. You're my brother. I love you dearly. You know that. I don't.
We do know he was a DJ, don't you?
It's all right. I'm keeping up an air of professionalism, but this show's over as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
You're out of here, boy. You're out of here.
You hate me. This is amazing. This is horrible. This is amazing and horrible at the same time. God.
Frank, I totally get it. I do understand your how you sound to me is a bit like an uncle you might get sat with at a wedding reception.
Yes.
And
I am that uncle. I'm the young uncle.
I'm that. Touche, sir. Touche.
No. I love those uncles. I gravitate towards them at weddings, and I love chatting to them. And they'll be saying like exactly what you said. And then I'll be feeding them lines like, "So, what did you think of the Queen movie?" And he's going to say, "Fraggy rubbish," and then and I understand what they're saying, and it's all about context and culture, isn't it? It definitely is. I don't dispute what you're saying. What I would ask you to reconsider is culture and context, because of course the whole cult of the superstar DJ playing other people's music and making a fortune from it doesn't really make sense, does it, intellectually or morally in a way? But it's still an incredible experience for those people who go to that thing, and that's why they pay that money. So I'm with you. I understand, and I understand your comment about rap music earlier on. It was a horrible time, which if you saw that to be what rap's contribution was to global culture, you could of course come to that conclusion. But I just think you're missing.
I think you and I will sort this out in person.
We will. I can't wait. And actually, we can't wait to do that. But what I wanted to say about Earth, Wind and Fire was that's a test of humanity. If you don't respond to Earth, Wind and Fire, you need counselling, because you must.
Yes.
I'm with you, bro. I'm with you.
You must have experienced some sort of trauma or difficulty that shut something off. The Earth, Wind and Fire hormone is no longer released because Maurice White, who was and Phil Bailey. Phil Bailey, is it? Philip Bailey, yeah.
Philip Bailey.
They are heavenly, aren't they? And they are angels on earth.
Yeah.
And this
you just want to put that big shirt on, don't you, and just go with this. Just float along and go with it, man.
And I do, and I still try and do the last bit of fantasy. The last bit where I think Maurice and Phil are doing the last falsetto bit of fantasy as it reaches a climax. If I'm in the car with family or alone, I try and go for it. And as I've got older, it's got more and more difficult. And I'm sure I'll twist my spleen one day doing it, but I don't care. I think it's a beautiful moment. The Animals from Britain.
One of the funniest things. I'll tell you one thing. this friend of mine recently got very upset at me because I've been a lifelong fan of Morrissey's. Right?
Oh no!
This friend of mine recently got very upset at me, and he goes, "How can you still be a fan of Morrissey's?" I actually even dragged Rachel to one of his concerts, and in Canada. So the thing is, this friend of mine got very upset. He was just like, "Do you understand his views about this and that?" And I'm just like, but you do understand that the guy has take his catalog from the Smiths and then bring him to his own catalog. The guy has done amazing work. You can't dispute that. A lot of people get very, very upset about this kind of stuff. And be it whatever political opinions the guy has, I think that he's a very talented lyricist. He always has been. I think he was. He inspired me. I love Morrissey. I always have, and it's. I know for a lot of people it's very difficult. His political opinions make him a difficult artist. The reason why I'm giving that example is because there are quite a few artists and Morrissey's from the 80s. There are quite a few artists from the 70s who have really, really had their careers destroyed because of their opinions, of their political opinions, and that should not be the case.
Quite right, Frank. And it's not that I don't like him because he's thought to, I don't know what the deal is. He's been called a racist, isn't he, just recently, and he's a pro-Brexit guy or something. It's not that. I'm just not a fan. I never was a fan of the Smiths. I like This Charming Man, and that's because it was given a disco remix by Francis Kevorkian, a New York DJ. That is the power of the DJ. If I can come back with a bit of a jab there, a Smiths record, This Charming Man, was made better by a New York DJ for me, and it's a beautiful hybrid of, like, Mancunian wit and lyrics and rhythm turned into a New York, probably a really hedonistic New York DJ vibe. Perfect combination for me.
I will regret this day showing my cards because Mr. Munson is going to make me pay for the rest of my life.
I have to go with Carl on this one, right? Because Morrissey is in the same category. Paul McCartney, to me, he just irritates me. It's something rotten. I really find him just can't even look at him. He needs pushing over in a muddy. I just can't do him.
Well, you were so angry there. Your sound went off for a moment. That was incredible.
So Gaza, is it Macca or is it Morrissey? Which one is the more despising character?
Oh, that's a difficult one, Frank. I think Macca would just edge it just slightly
because of his history,
just because of who he is.
Just because he hates him. That's
and
it.
I'll tell you one thing. I'm so sorry. I'm not of tagging you along every time I see something. Macca is the first thing that reminds me of is you.
Me too. That's all I think about now. That's all. Whenever I see Paul McCartney, I think, what would Gary think? It's amazing.
I actually, first person I think of is Gary. As soon as Macca does something, I always go, "What would Gary think?"
Yeah, me too. It's a bit like,
and I put it up. So we're on the same level there.
What would Jesus say? What would Gary say?
Say that when he was with his own band Wings, that he ever did anything really any good? Because I listened to the lyrics, and I'm sorry, they're shit. They really are shit.
Come on, Macca.
Hold that there. We are talking about first singles, first albums, first club experience, and first concert. The Animals from Britain. I don't know if that's a reference to you and me, Gary. There is also an animal from Canada here tonight as well. Although it's not my thing, Southern rock was monumental here in the States. Nina Skinner, Molly.
Yes.
Yes, got a nice, easy-going vibe. And Peter says, my first gig was awful. Terence Trent D'Arby, the Pasadenas, and the Communards at the Albert Hall. I mean, they do have their sort of merits, but as a first gig, you don't want to be telling your grandchildren about that. And yes, I do remember the Mud Club. I used to go to the Mud Club, Peter. Perhaps we rubbed shoulders there.
I remember the Mud Club. I remember the Mud Club.
Was it you that sold me those rabbit droppings in the toilet that night?
Yes, that was me.
Oh, Persian Frank. Now it all falls into place. Yeah, Cheeky Pete's at Richmond. That's
Persian Frank who had a Persian shower.
You learn something every man cave. Cheeky Pete's in Richmond is John's first clubbing experience. That's fantastic. Keep those coming in. My first concert was Cheap Trick. That's not a bad thing.
Amazing.
Yeah. There's a Yes Frank there. Which is worth mentioning. Can you guys have completely glossed over Disco Confession. I love Casey and the Sunshine Band.
Yes.
No problem there with us. Your secret is safe. Out in the open. Absolutely. That's the way I like it. See what I did there? My relatives, Tavares, are on. Wow, Dorian is related to Tavares. Heaven must be with an angel. They're on the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack with More Than a Woman. What a great album, really. Truly.
What a great album. I told you.
I'm shaving mine off next week, or I'll end up sleeping with the chickens. Lol. That's a Portuguese idiom, isn't it? So you've got to get yourself sorted, or you end up sleeping.
Oh, it's like the Italian ones. It's like the Italian one. You sleep with the fishes.
In Portugal, it's the chicken sleeping with the frango.
Hey, sleeping with the frango.
you go with the frango, if you know what I mean. Baby face soon for Joel. Amazing.
Yeah, Joel, come on. Get with the cut, man.
We were talking. Have you got a lapel mic, Gary Austin?
Yes, I've got a radio mic. I just knocked it off.
What a pro.
Gary, you're like a proper pro, man. I love this. I love the professionalism here.
So the other
nothing to do with this.
The Elvis of the 70s, the comment. Costello, we could talk about him,
Yes.
I guess. Yes, love Elvis Presley, says Gemini. Good evening to you, Gemini. Good point, Victoria. Earth, Wind and Fire. Yeah, a lot of love for EWF, obviously, all round tonight, because we're among great friends and wonderful human beings. It goes with the territory. I love that Holly song, says Victoria. Beat me to it, Gary Austin. I can't remember what you beat him to there. Elton John, Philadelphia Freedom was Sweet Revenge in 1975 when I was living in New York, and the Flyers beat the Islanders for the Stanley Cup that year.
Yes.
North American reference.
No. The Leafs were horrible that year, by the way. Okay, go ahead.
The history of Elvis, and he was working for the FBI or CIA. He had cars converted to surveillance vehicles, and he was against communism.
Okay.
Possibly another subject for another evening. Conspiracy theories. Ram on. Give your hearts to somebody. Paul McCartney in Wings. Gary, let's just look at Gary. Zoom in on Gary for a minute.
Can't go with you, Victoria. I just can't go with you, I'm afraid.
Paul McCartney.
Ram was a good. Don't you think you guys don't believe Ram was a good album?
I don't know what was on it. I'm one of my favorite tracks is Take It Away. I love the episodic nature of Take It Away, and I love the video with John Hurt.
Do you know? If I could, one of my first I've always loved Macca and Lennon, because one of the first albums that I ever looked at was my brother's one of the Beatles albums, and it always said McCartney and Lennon, and I always understood what. Well, at that point, I did not understand. Later in life, I understood what that meant. But one of the first albums when I got to Canada as a kid was McCartney's. What was that album?
So you can't even remember his album because that was good.
No, I do. I do. It had the track sound. The main song on the album was My Brave Face. Flowers in the Dirt. That was the album. I bought that album with my own money. The first one of the first albums that I bought was one of those. Well, that was the album Flowers in the Dirt, and it was an amazing album. I'm sorry, Gary, but I'm a huge Macca fan. I don't want to reveal myself this way. But I somehow
you have your own opinion. You have your own opinion, but I think you wasted your money.
I somehow Macca has formed my musical life. Let's just say that.
To be honest, right, and to be fair, there must be somewhere out there a Paul McCartney track that I actually kind of like, but I can't think.
You
of
do, Gary. You do. You do. You just need to be coerced back into it.
I just don't like. He's not a nice man. He's just not a nice man.
The frog song.
He might be a horrible guy. He probably hates falafels, but I don't hate him for it.
Okay. Yes. Never hate a man because of his views about falafel.
No, there you go.
Or vegetarianism. I like Junior's Farm. Now, what's that a reference to?
That's that's a Mac album, I think.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. If you haven't, check out the Bee Gees documentary on Netflix. I will. It talks about how they got labeled disco after Saturday Night Live soundtrack, and it devastated their career for years. You must also watch their interview with Clive Anderson. That's hilarious because they are a bit earnest and they leave the studio. It's hilarious, and they were a bit up themselves.
What took that off? Why did they leave? I can't remember.
They made an off-the-cuff comment about being dickheads or something, and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, here are the dickheads," and they got really upset about it. They just, it was in that new style, wasn't it, of American type, the sort of thing an American interviewer might say, but not a British one. And I just don't think they were. And they, Clive Anderson, I guess they didn't even know who he was, and they still got.
Don't you guys think Parkinson used to do amazing interviews?
No. Now listen, with Parkinson, right, he used to flatter his guests. Yeah. He was never asking searching questions. He was always
no. He used to charm them. He used to charm them. I'll tell you. I'll second you on that. But I will tell you one thing. He used to charm them into a trap, just the same way Parkinson. This guy Munson over here is a junior Parkinson, because what he does, he charms you into a question, and then he rolls you and he double punches you in the gut. This is what Parkinson used to do. What he used to do is he used to start the entire interview with a lot of flattery, and then he used to muscle you up, and he used to turn you into this, and then he used to dive into your secret life later into the interview. I used to love those interviews of Parkinson's. He actually did an interview like this of George Michael's that as I was watching him, I was like, I know exactly what Parkinson's going to do, and he did exactly that. What do you think of that, Gary?
Well, I don't know. I never really seen him ask some really hard, cutting questions to make somebody uncomfortable. He always mention, publicity. He never really got there for me. The only one I can really remember he couldn't steer was Oliver Reed. It was because he was blasted out of his face. You couldn't control Oliver Reed. You never could.
Are you a bigger Jeremy Paxton fan? Is that what the deal, cutting edge, a guy who gets in your grill kind of guy?
Oh, bloody.
Carl, we were just talking about you off air. We were actually we were on air. We were just talking about you, and we were like, the way Parkinson interviews people is almost exactly the same formula that Carl Munson follows.
I taught him everything he knows.
Pardon?
I taught him everything he knows. No, it's what I grew up with. It's what I grew up with. And there is a difference, isn't there, between the American style of interview and the British one, the classic British one, which he personifies. Wogan was very similar, and if you were lucky, you might get an unguarded moment, like Gary, I think, was saying. The charm offensive, and then the person becomes very relaxed, and then a difficult question might be addressed. Whereas with the American genre, I think that Jonathan Ross and who's the other fella, the Irish guy, who's everywhere, the current sort of major British interview show. Can't remember his name now. But they it's about them, isn't it? And they bring on guests to augment their own comedy and jokes and scripts and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I this is one of the things that I've always loved about British comedy, or the way Brits do things is because, well, as a Canadian, you've always watched it, right? Because BBC has always featured in our culture. So the thing is, you've always watched BBC and you've always watched all these amazing interviewers. So you have a very good idea of what has happened through the 70s. I was not in Canada during the 70s, but things my brother used to tell me when he used to live in England, one of the things that used to happen is it was a combination in the UK about UK kind of felt, and this is one of the things that I realized later, is UK kind of felt left behind with the American culture of as far as fashion, as far as music and everything else was concerned. And
Mm.
then the UK took it back in
Yes.
the 80s. This is what
Yeah.
happened. What do you think of that, Carl Manson?
What about how this Cool Britannia thing and in the plot taking it back again, like from the 60s, missing a beat in the
Yes,
70s?
it's because 60s were very UK British invasion, right? And then the 70s arrived. And in the 70s, the Americans did a few things, quite a few things actually, visually and through their music. That was a little bit different. And then 80s, I think, were dominated by the Brits. I think 80s, the acts that came out of England were just unbelievable. The 80s Brit music had the kind of effect on people, even in the United States and Canada, that up till this day people are not able to forget. I'm quite sure you have strong opinions about that.
I actually don't, because what occurs to me about that is that I grew up there, and that was my childhood, was like being, and my teenage years were being among, as in, not among as in, being part of those bands, but like being a consumer of those bands. That was our British upbringing, and it's only now that I have that perspective. Like, wow, how on earth did such a tiny place create such a massive cultural,
Absolutely,
compared to America,
absolutely.
compared to the size and population and cultural dominance of America? How was Britain able to do that, and to some extent continues to do that? It is quite extraordinary, and that's part of the hubris
It is.
behind the Brexit thing, isn't it? Is that, like, we'll keep doing that, whether or not. I mean, I think all empires come and go. It has to be said, but there's just something about how Britain has dominated the arts for decades, and I
For
think.
decades.
But I think part of it is this called medium is the message thing. So they've decided what the medium is, and then dominated it. I think that's what's gone on. And until something else is invented, it's like there is a kind of, this sort of special relationship between the Americans and the Brits, culturally, Hollywood, British movies. Unless it's just a blindfold I have because it's the culture I grew up in. It just seems to be a world dominating relationship of culture. And I'm interested to know how long it will go on for.
Yeah, but the thing is, I'll tell you one thing. As a kid, well, I moved to Canada as a 15 or 16-year-old. But as a kid being brought up in Pakistan until that time, I was so influenced by everything British because the thing is, I used to watch Top of the Pops every week, the episode before on VHS.
Really?
I used to watch it religiously. I basically I am the product of British music, British culture, because if you come from a certain working class or whatever class in Pakistan or India, I'm quite sure a lot of Indian people will agree to this, is that it was a lot of British stuff. You were brought up on British music and you were brought up on British culture. So the thing is, you were a huge fan of Benny Hill. You were a huge fan of everything British because every week you would watch Top of the Pops on video. You would watch everything that would happen in England, and you would just be whatever. My first trip to England as I think 7 or 8-year old, I was privileged enough. My parents did well, So I was able to travel to England quite often. And things, my trip, first trip to England, right before Diana and Charles got married. It was one of my most memorable trips. It was just, and I realized later in life that it was one of the worst times in England's history because the lady in charge was crushing the country. She was doing horrible things. Meanwhile, I
Loving it,
was
Frank. Loving it.
yes, Garbo.
I'll send you the flight later.
But it was a wonderful time for me, right? It was amazing coming to England. I've always loved England, so the thing is, it was very it's interesting looking at it back, looking at those times now. But when I was a kid coming to England on a regular basis, I had nothing but passion for England. I've always loved England.
Have you ever seen It Ain't a Half Hot, Mum?
Pardon?
Have you seen a British comedy show?
Obviously not.
Eight and a half what?
It ain't half hot, Mum.
Lovely pair of shoulders there, boy. Show them off. Show them off.
This guy, I swear to God, Carl Munson, you're my partner. You're not supposed to let me down like this.
Gary, come to my defense and aid here. Wasn't there a British comedy show called It Ain't Half Hot, Mum? Oh, his microphone's gone strategic.
There was an amazing movie called 8.5.
No, nothing to do with that.
Okay, I think British people will have enjoyed that.
I swear to God, my two friends in the world that I thought would hold me up are letting me down right now.
Yeah, we want to treat you to the box there.
Here, right? I've got to test something, right? You've tried something. Now I'm going to try. Did you ever get somebody called Kenny Everett in Canada?
Yes, we did.
Now, what do you think of Kenny Everett? Because to me, he was like a kick in the head to comedy at the time. He was just like risky.
He was spectacular. You know, when Kenny Everett did his thing with Freddie Mercury, I remember my mom saw that, and my mom, because I was, when I was a kid, I was a huge Freddie Mercury fan, and I used to like watch him, and my mom used to be like, "What is wrong with you?" And I think that was the Kenny Everett thing with Freddie Mercury, is when my mom cut me off from Freddie Mercury and his wife beater shirts. And she was always like, "This guy is no good." And I was just like, "Mom, he's one of us." And she'd be like, "No, he's not one of us. He's not Persian."
But was he half Persian or half Indian?
Yes, he was half Persian.
Was he really?
I never knew that. Oh.
You know, does it all make sense now? Frank's half Persian.
Yeah, I can see now.
Now, Frank, have you ever heard the words said to you before? I like the length.
Oh yes.
Well, that's good, because here's another one for you. Frank, your beard looks pretty good. I like the length. Looking good, my friend.
There you go. Now
you go.
you're. Oh, I like this.
It's all about you tonight, Frank. Look, I need to take you to a Carl Cox. Now, this isn't, if you're hearing this but not seeing the pictures, Carl Cox, this is not a reference to me. This is, and it's COX. So, Frank, I need to take you to a Carl Cox night. He's a popular DJ who works the crowd. And John would like to take you to Carl Cox's night.
Steady now, Carl. Steady.
Could you pick another name?
Victoria, you have just hit number one. I love you so much.
Jeff Lynn
is my hero.
Victoria, with all her input tonight, is an absolute crowd pleaser. Lovely to have you here tonight, Victoria. Public Enemy. It takes a nation of millions to hold us back. First album on vinyl that I bought. That is very respectable. Profoundly revolutionary music, and I know that's not virtue signaling. Well said there, Jay. A good pick. You can tell your grandchildren with pride that you bought that. If I ever could see ELO live with Jeff Lynn there, I would be crying the whole time. Amazing.
Yeah.
Talking of which, Coldplay, that just reminds me of the best review I've heard of Coldplay is crying while masturbating is what Coldplay is.
Oh, you don't like him, do you? I remember you don't like him.
Here's the thing, and a lot of people might disagree with this. I'm a huge Coldplay fan. I always have been from the first track. And as a matter of fact, the first, in the '90s, when you used to like, I got my first computer, and what I actually did is the first one of the first few songs that Coldplay had. What was the first album? And I sent something to Rachel. One of the first few songs. Coldplay always has been a very solid, amazing British band, and this is the tradition. Coldplay and Keane, and there was another band. Carl, stop laughing! I swear to
That,
God, I know you
no,
like Keane. You
no, it was
like
that.
Keane.
No, I know. Well, but I understand why people don't. It was Coldplay, Keane, and that solo artist, wasn't it, of the time? David, David, somebody or other. Friday night.
Yeah, no, he was an idiot. No,
About
don't worry about him. But
okay.
Coldplay, Keane, and there was another band. Oh, the
From
guy,
Mexico.
Four to the Floor guy. Four to the Floor guy. What was his name? The band that did the song Four to the Floor. Very good band. There are amazing British bands that have come out.
No doubt, no doubt, no doubt. Okay, let's do. We got a lot of catching up to do.
All
While
right.
we've been indulging ourselves here, John Cunningham. Now you're talking, Frank. Prince is one of the greats of all time. Prince,
Prince is a genius.
no doubt, ultimate instrumentalist and performer. Met him a couple of times and danced on stage during one of his. Doreen, you are rock star. Use
Doreen,
Frank.
you're a rock star.
Sure,
I want to
Jean-Michel
meet you.
Rendezvous 4.
Jean-Michel Jarre.
Not mentioned.
His live album is one of the best. The first live album that he did in late '70s, early '80s is one of the best live albums of Jean-Michel Jarre's career. It's
But I would
proper music. I'm
Yeah, but
sorry, DJ.
when it comes to live
Back
albums,
in a second.
we've got to go back to Peter Frampton.
He's off again.
Without the DJs, the records are not heard. Oh, Victoria, you're really giving us some great service tonight. The Spy Who Loved Me. I think that was. I was thinking if was that the first date I went on with a girl.
What was the
The-
song? What was the song called?
Like heaven above me, the spy who loved me. Keep it on my
My secret safe tonight. Yes, I remember. Yes.
Charlie Simon, fantastic. Frampton, do you feel like we do? This is bringing back so many lovely memories to people. And the Guess Who and No Time, NY Unix Guru, loving these memories. I think Happy New Year, Carl, from a Facebook user. Happy New Year to you, Igualmente. Felicia Alanova, Billie Eilish, No Time to Die, the new Bond song. I wonder what that's like. It's pretty good,
Now,
says
now, Billy, see, my niece, Terence's daughter, she likes Billie Eilish, but there's another one I find really irritating. She might be quite a talented artist, but I just does my head in.
Nicki Minaj. See ya. Exactly. Let's not even go there. Hi,
Yeah.
Rod. I think Rod Skeet is here tonight. Look sensible, everybody. Yeah, that's a hi, John, from Rod. Frank, I was a DJ in college where mixing vinyl was an art form. I don't have much appreciation for DJs that use computer software mixing. Yeah, it's a generational thing. That me neither. I never got into the Serato electronic thing. I was definitely a 1200 and a mixer kind of guy myself. Game I told them. Spent my first student grant on a couple of Technics 1200s. How about the Doors? They were more of the Los Angeles sound. Yeah, the Doors absolutely fantastic, and they're the height of their career, of course, in the 70s. I think I'm right in saying artist equals creator, says Victoria. Anyone else who takes someone else's art and only edits it, makes money off someone else's creation, needs to go home. So Victoria shares Frank's view about DJs there.
Yes, no. First of all, I have to say one thing. I have risked a huge thing today. Carl Munson over here is a very good friend of mine, and I've risked something over here. I'm going to pay for this for a very long time because look at Carl Munson smiling right now. The way he's smiling right now, I'm going to get a huge payback for it one day. However, I got to tell you one thing. I actually believe that DJs do a very good job. They do an amazing job. It's just the function of a DJ has been taken to a different level. I believe that when you're doing concerts and you're doing like these huge things, where friends of mine in Canada, sorry to interrupt whatever is going on. Friends of mine, whenever we used to go on like out at night, and they used to be like, this DJ is going to be playing tonight, and I'd be like, so he's going to flip a few records. I swear to God, you're going to pay $60 to watch this guy flip a few records. This is completely ridiculous. And my friends would be like, yeah, well, the guy knows the flow. And I'm just like, but you know the flow. You know what's going on. Can you be a DJ? And the person will be like, no, but he does an amazing job. I have a lot of respect for DJs. My biggest problem is that when you go and you sell out an entire arena in Canada, this is what happens. I'm quite sure it happens in the UK as well, where an arena of 18,000, 20,000 gets sold out. One guy is standing in front of 3 or 4 different, whatever, spinning records, and he's getting paid a certain kind of amount, and he does not play a single instrument, is a flipping problem for me. I don't know. Carl Munson, I love you, brother.
That doesn't sound like an apology. That doesn't sound like an apology, but go on, Gary.
Can I take mid ground again? Right, I think I've got a new perspective here, right?
Yeah.
Because,
are you gonna rub it in? Are you gonna rub it in, Gary?
No,
is this
as I'm looking now, I'm in the middle of the picture, so I'm going to take middle ground, right? As far as I can see it, right, a bad DJ at an event can make or break something.
Yes,
yeah,
I agree.
So, conversely, a good DJ can make a brilliant night. So I can see the tilt on this one. The quality of a good DJ can make an occasion, and it's a bit like when you're sort of you're directing a film or you're editing or whatever. It's all in the mix, isn't it? Really. So it's making an okay occasion into a really brilliant one, and only a certain person with a certain skill can mix all those tracks together to make a playlist that hits the mark.
Yes, but why can't a DJ be a DJ? What I don't understand is why can't a DJ just do his or her thing?
Because you have DJs like Bert Fegg or whatever he is, right, who does the local party, and then you get the superstar DJs who are polished in their art. That's probably what it is.
Is it because they're polished? Is it because they're polished? Is it because they can take somebody else's music and mix it and appropriately turn it into something that has got nothing to do with their talent? The only talent that they've got is they can just mix it right on the spot.
Yeah,
is that what the talent is?
That's an art in itself, because if you mix a load of music and tracks together in a form that sort of makes a performance.
He hates me. Look at him. He hates me.
I can see it. I can see. I've kind of rolled back a bit here, right? I can see both sides. That's what it is, Frank. It's about somebody who knows how to put.
I am in the doghouse with Carl Munson for the longest time.
That's what I reckon.
You're really not, and I've got the solution to this. I would like us to wrap up by past, and it's not because I'm offended and upset. It's because we've been talking for 2.5 hours. Again, it's been amazing.
Music.
Okay, how about I have a suggestion. How about we, because it's a special episode, how about we don't do it at past, if you're okay with it? How about we do it at exactly 1?
I might have to go and get planning permission for that.
Okay.
Or do we just stay until we drop?
No. We can give ourselves a target. I think 1 is a good time, because the thing is, then we have a good goal to reach to, and then I can make up for all the nonsense I've been going on about, and I can suck up to Carl Munson for the next half hour.
I would like to do the comments, and I've got a perfect solution for you with that. I think is going to turn your head completely with this DJ thing. Okay, so let's catch up with the comments. I did read the easily offended disclaimer, Frank, but seriously, Morrissey,
What can you say?
can't mention 70s. Without mentioning funk, which was the forefather of hip hop.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, James Brown. We haven't mentioned James Brown tonight.
James Brown. We haven't mentioned James Brown.
Father of funk, absolutely. I saw Earth, Wind and Fire a few years ago, and Chic opened for them. Nile Rodgers is a genius. I saw Nile Rodgers performing, I think about 6 years ago. It was beautiful.
Genius. Nile Rodgers, genius.
What a man. Frank, you're an 80s child. The 70s are too early for you, baby. John said, my first gig, total embarrassment. Black lace with Flintlock supporting. Oh dear, Flintlock. Surbiton Assembly Room, circa 74. Now that's where a load of those awful predatory DJs used to hang out as well, wasn't it? Surbiton Assembly Room, at gigs like that. I'm so sorry to hear that, John. Take me down to Junior's Farm. That's NY Unix Guru. Excuse me. I think the 70s, some bands' political opinions launched their fame. Example, the Class Sandinista triple album from The Clash, of course. Parkinson and Ali, that was a great interview, wasn't it? I think you would agree, Frank. Killer Queen by Queen, first single 1974. Victoria is holding her head up high in this show, isn't she?
Yes, she is. She's my hero.
Gilbert O'Sullivan, incredible songwriter. I love Alone Again. Yes. Really amazing. John Cunningham, fantastic show, chaps. Thoroughly enjoyed. Got to leave now. Got a super early start. See you next time. Cheers, John. Thank you for your.
John.
Brit music was better and deeper in general, in my opinion. Yep, fair play. George Harrison solo album was amazing. Favorite.
She keeps getting better.
She does.
Yes, it does. It actually, George Harrison's album was unbelievable.
He was the best Beatle. He was the best Beatle in my opinion, but that's
come on, Gargo.
Yes, I agree. Raven was not necessarily a good album. It was just one that we grasp after the breakup of the Beatles. Culture, I think that's a reference to the Brit, Cool Britannia. That should say Ram, not Raven. No one has mentioned the Grateful Dead, hated them, along with Neil Young. Yuck. Victoria, Barry Gibb is still enjoying life in Miami. Neil Young, Like a Hurricane. I think there was a Neil Young fan there in NY Unix. Here's one that was super racy for its time. Afternoon Delight by the Ozark Mountain Daredevils. I know a different version, I think. I love that track. Jackie Blue. That was good. Yes, I think that people are so fed up with us talking to each other here that they're talking to themselves in the comments. All notes from Philly. Super hit makers, absolutely. It was David Gray. Yeah, very good, Gary. David Gray was the guy I was trying to think of around that time of Coldplay. Talking Heads, same as it ever was. Psycho Killer Kassai, very good. Frank, save your 80s for an 80s show. I have plenty to say about the 80s. Experienced it close up and personal. Black Flag, Stray Cats, Thompson Twins, you name it. I was there.
There you go.
She should have her own show.
She should come on.
Who is Thurman Munson? Is that from Kingpin? Munson gets a terrible name in Hollywood, I have to say. One of my favorite bands of all time, XTC. Yeah, I had making plans for Nigel, I think, also on colored vinyl. Gary might be my musical twin, says Victoria.
Oh, there you go.
There he is. Steppenwolf, Born to be Wild, Magic Carpet Ride. I saw them years ago. It was like a Harley Davidson convention. I bet that was amazing. 10cc. Lots of memories coming up, right? Not in Love. Fabulous track. Freddie Mercury was born in Zanzibar.
Of course.
Coldplay, A Funeral Dirge from beginning to end. And finally, Blood, Sweat and Tears and Chicago. Yep. So many fantastic memories for people coming up tonight. Fantastic.
Isn't this amazing? Isn't this amazing, boys? This is beautiful.
Indeed.
This is beautiful. What we are invoking here is amazing. Look at Garvo, looking all dangerous and looking all like he's about to pull a hit on someone. I like this about you, Garvo.
I'm loving this new image. I can go with this big time.
New year, new Garvo. It's a Peaky Blinders influence, isn't it?
He's got the Peaky Blinders like triple.
Blinders, yeah, Peaky Blinders.
Blinders. And the thing is, one of the most amazing things I have to tell you guys, one of the most amazing influences that I've had is first of all watching Peaky Blinders, and I started seeing. I actually in some of the Peaky Blinders characters, I started seeing you guys in there for some reason. I don't know why. I saw Munson in one of the characters. I won't tell you which one. Actually, I will tell you when we see each other in person. And I saw Gary in one of those characters.
Tell me now. I want to know which Peaky Blinders character I'm most like.
Yes, yes. You are. I'll tell you in person. But when I tell you in person, right after that, we'll do a show, and I'll tell people what I thought of you, which character I thought of when I saw Peaky Blinders, because I saw both of you in Peaky Blinders characters, and it was extremely amazing watching it. Because once I thought of both of you, I was just like, oh man, this show is even more interesting because I have two friends who look like these characters or who actually act like these characters. This is going to be amazing.
Well, you could be in it as well, couldn't you? Because you got the Chinese and you got Solomon down in London, Camden Town with his rum. But you've got Persian Frankie's coming over with his rabbit dropping.
Frankie. You know the amazing thing, guys. This is God's honest truth. This is right. What you see on those scenes, parts of that in Birmingham are still like that. They haven't changed. They're still exactly the same. Some of those streets are still exactly the same.
You know. As soon as I see that, I was actually telling a few of my friends in Canada. I was just like, I finally have a Burmese friend. And whatever you see over there, he does sound like that. And they're really, really curious. One of these shows, I'm going to bring at least one of my friends on because they really want to meet you. Funny thing is that everybody, Netflix is everywhere, right? So everybody gets to watch this, and they usually believe that it's out there, it's England, this is what goes on. I go, no. People actually sound like that, and in those times, this is how they used to behave. And then I have a friend who actually is one of those guys.
Gary.
Everybody knows that the awfully well clipped British accent that you see in the films, etc. They're Scottish. They probably know Welsh, but my accent. They think, what the hell is that? Where's he from?
Yeah, because Jasper Carrot never made it in Hollywood, did he?
No, not really. Unfortunately, he was well worth it. But
Here's my solution to the DJ gate thing between you and me, Frank. That slight little bit of awkwardness between you and me.
No, there's nothing awkward about you and I. There's all love between you.
I've got a therapeutic outlet for this. This is how I envisage things, and I invite everybody to be a part of this. Because I am gonna step off the Aussies from Birmingham, Benny Hill and Hello. These are the classics. My memories from the 80s are more around cartoons and movies and Hello. I think people do like to see the British sticking it to the French in Hello. But anyway, when you move to Coimbra, Frank,
yes,
what I have in mind is that we'll start a little. We might even call it the Man Cave, and we'll start a little club night, okay, which will have the sort of music we've been talking about tonight. It might be a 70s, 80s night in Coimbra, where people they won't be like the 80s and 90s with ecstasy and just crazy nonsense drugs. It will be alcohol. It'll be alcohol. That was very brummy. Ow. It'll be really 70s and very boozy, and it will be by the end of the night that your inner Freddie will be released, and you'll be DJing with me to this 70s, 80s night in Coimbra. And we will have the best of Portuguese.
I would not be surprised.
And what's going to happen, Frank, is that you will mount the decks literally. Actually, no, not literally. Physically, you'll mount.
Frank, no, don't.
But you want to be careful with that one.
It'll be a bit like that. It'll be a bit like that. You will stand like in a really kind of friendly-ish way. You'll probably have a mankini on with the Portuguese flag on it, like a red and green.
Yes.
Underneath your outfit, you'll strip off to a Portuguese mankini,
Yes.
stood on the front of the DJ decks while you're playing something like Earth, Wind and Fire September as
Yes.
the climax of the evening.
Yes.
Everyone is going mad in the place. Aguardente is being thrown around, drunk out of the bottle, and you will suddenly say to yourself, "Suddenly, I realise what this DJ thing is all about." And
I've got to
then
be there. I've got to be there.
yeah, and we'll do that every week for 12 years until you have to be medically retired from
Yes.
doing it. And it'll be amazing.
This is the kind of future I'm actually looking forward to.
Yes.
What a way to go.
This is exactly the kind of future I'm looking forward to. And you remember this, you've promised this on online, Mr. Carl Manson. We are going to do this together.
You saw it here. You saw it here.
I'll remind you. Remember all that stuff you said about DJs, and you'll say, "I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry. I totally get it now."
No. I'm never. Here's the one thing. I will never take back my words. One thing is that I always believe that my friends, the people who are my friends, the ones who do certain things, they will always be my friends. There's no two ways to it. As far as I'm concerned, rock stars like you will always do your thing. My thing is with DJs. DJs will do certain things.
That's what I'm saying, Frank. You're going to be one of them. You'll be joining the DJ class, and you'll see how you've been able to stimulate a room full of people with nothing but plastic.
Yeah. Well, I have a way of stimulating a room full of people without plastic.
I'm so glad to hear it. Okay. Life imitating art. Final. I am going to go now. I'll leave it open for you guys to talk here. But life imitating art. A 27-year-old man was shot dead during a Peaky Blinders fancy dress party on New Year's Eve. Say please. The party host was ringing the New Year with friends when one of the guests accidentally shot him in the chest while handing him a hunting rifle in a remote house in southern France. Dear, oh dear. And
Dear.
Here we go. This is a final thought for tonight, from me anyway. Radio hosts, aren't they DJs too?
Yes. But the thing is, I've always, here's the thing. Here's a thing, Carl Manson. I have one of the things that you know and I know we will work with is I know. Look at this smiling little twit in the middle of the screen. Okay, stop it, you. I'm not making up ground. All right. So here's what I'm saying. As far as I'm concerned, from the first time I arrived in Portugal, I was listening to this guy called Carl Munson. I was just like, you know what? I like what he does. I think I want to be a part of what he does. And we got together and we started talking, and it was amazing. My thing is that it's a cult of personality. The thing is, what we are about is personality. It's got you are you as an individual, Carl Munson. It's got nothing to do with what kind of records you're going to spin. It's your individuality that makes everything. Do you know what I mean? Is like when we do whatever shows we do and whenever we talk to people or whenever you're online, people are usually tuning in to watch you. They're not tuning in to get together on a concept. They just love what you do. So for me, the biggest thing is it's always the individual. It's got nothing to do with anything else. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm quite flattered and would love to like to
You should
believe
be.
that.
You should be. I'm very, the reason why we are friends is because we on a great extent, this is what we express. Not only friendship, but we express this thing, this personality. And this is what I appreciate about you, man. You're all about personality.
Well, it's very kind of you to say so, and I take it. I'll accept that, and I also think what we are is a community as well. We have people who come back and chip in via the, and I just think it's really lovely of people to be here. Like we've nearly been here for 3 hours, and some people have been here nearly that whole time,
Yes.
hanging out with us, and I just think that's wonderful. I really do.
And they're not bored. And they're not bored of you and I. Do you know what I mean? It's like, look at these. Garvo is looking like a movie star in the middle over here. He looks like he looks like he's about to order, like somebody is going to get killed,
Yeah.
and Garvo is going to order it. Look at it. Look at
he
him.
just whispers behind his hand. Sort
Yeah.
that guy out. Yeah.
He's
yeah.
like that guy Frank on the left. I don't like him too much.
Well, look, I love you, man. It's getting very boozy. This is really feeling like a proper pub now, where by the end of the evening, people are saying, "Oh, I love you, man," and then maybe feeling a little bit embarrassed in the morning, but it's okay. And we're back again on the next Friday. And
Absolutely.
Yep. And look at this. Joel's going to join us next time. It's fun, even for my boring self Portuguese that that is the ultimate accolade to us, that a Portuguese person would indulge us in your own country, Joel.
Yes, this is your country, and we love your country.
Absolutely, we're so grateful to you, Joel. Absolutely, and so I'm going to go, and I'm going to wish you all a happy New Year on this special day.
Thank you. Same to you guys.
It's the second now. Second, Frank, did you want to go till 1, or are we going to call it a day there?
Could we go to 1? I would really like it if Mr. Munson, if you can stay, and Austin, if you can stay. I want us to end on an amazing tone here.
So when I said I'm going to go now, and you said I want you to stay, you really want me to stay?
I really want you to stay.
All right, I'll be back in 2 minutes, or not?
Just go and pee. Just go and pee and come back.
Okay.
What do you think, Gary? Gary, I can't hear you. Jesus Christ. What kind of you spent money on a particular speaker, or what is going on over here, Gary? All right. Gary, give me a Robert De Niro, at least. Jesus Christ. Gary. It's a live broadcast, Gary. Dance, at least. All right. Speak into it. Gary's left the station. Folks, I am here, and I would like to tell you that my friends are amazing people. Gary Austin over here, if you can see his arse, oh, no, it's not his arse. We are going to see Gary Austin coming back onto the screen in 2 minutes, and he's going to look very presentable. And he is going to, oh, Jesus, Gary, don't block your screen. Okay, he's coming back. What's going on here? All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can finally hear you, Gary.
Yeah, I think my batteries might. I'm on the radio mic, so my batteries might be going down.
All right. Your battery's been going on for a while. Just sit down. All right.
I'm not going to leave you, bro. I'm not going to leave you.
Yeah, just don't leave me, man. Like, I swear to God, I thought you were going to leave me.
No, it's just my batteries have gone a bit low.
Yeah. But you're not on a low. How's the rum treating you?
Frank, can I be honest?
Yes, be honest. That's good rum.
That was almost That was almost full, but when I came in,
Yeah, I can see that. You're being a rock star with that rum. I like that.
it is very nice, though. I must admit.
I'm very proud of you, Gary. You've actually pulled a very good stunt over there. I like this. Is this like the finest rum? What kind of rum are you drinking? Is this
Now,
like smooth? Can you explain to me what you're feeling when you drink this rum?
no, it isn't the finest rum, Frank. It's just whatever I can get my hands on. It's spiced Captain Morgan, which is middle of the road, okay-ish rum. You know that my favourite rum is Kraken spiced rum.
You have told me that before.
Yeah, and I can't
What we
get that.
will drink, one of the things that we have to do on one of these shows is do a rum show because I know you're a huge rum fan. Oh, there you go. He's back. This guy is back. There you go. So, Carl Munson, what we were talking to Gary about just now is rum. And I believe that there is this Trinidadian rum that I want Gary to try because he's a huge rum fan. And it's a very smooth rum. A friend of mine recommended it a while back. I want Gary to try it. If I can find it, I'll bring it next time. And Gary and I will do it in person in El Viagra. How's that?
Yeah, I'm up for that, mate. I love rum.
You're up for that, and then we can do. Actually, you know what? We've got a few shows to do in your basement, which are going to be amazing. Carl Munson is really looking forward to doing the first show because it's our spiritual home. So we have to do the first show, one of the first shows over there, once this COVID thing is done.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, boys.
What's your first plan for the first show in Gary's basement there, Carl Munson?
Well, I quite like the idea of you in your Portuguese mankini at any of these events because the photographs will be fantastic of that.
Well, would you? Hey, I'm Persian. I do that. It's not a problem.
I'm Persian. I do that. That's merchandise, isn't it? I'm Persian. I do that. I'm just searching for Portuguese mankinis. I imagine, I don't know if it's a kind of cultural thing that would make this transition, but we'll find out. I'm so keen. I mean, that's the whole point of tonight's show is to just demonstrate what a boring decade we're possibly going into, and how we need to get a grip on it somehow. And this is what the punks of the 70s must have thought to themselves. It's like, you know, the 70s are going horribly wrong. We need an underground music. We need self-expression. What can we do? And they resorted to just like a three instrument combo, rock and roll, but back to basics. And just, I'm not suggesting we should do that from the.
But guys, we can't be boring. No, as a matter of fact, this is what I'm suggesting. It's not what I'm suggesting. We obviously know that is that we cannot be boring. But the one thing that I have never signed up for is boring. Is that all? This is amazing entertainment, isn't it? None of us have ever found ourselves in this situation, and I want us to find ourselves in this situation on a regular basis. Yeah. I think we should be doing this on a regular basis. I think this is the form of entertainment that needs to work, and it should work.
And we've got to find a way, haven't we? It's like, on the face of it, it's like the restrictions are here. You can't do this. You can't do that. It's like, well, okay, how can we do it? And this is one good result, isn't it? Have you drunk the whole lot?
No, it's working. It's right next to me.
It's working.
We've got to get bigger than this.
Look at Gary laughing. Gary, stop laughing.
We've got to get bigger than this. We can't be cowed and restrained in such a boring way.
You can't restrain me.
Exactly. You can't handle the truth. It's exactly that spirit, isn't it? Of like, okay, we will contain the virus. We'll do what we need to do legally, morally, and as well as that, we'll do amazing things. Because I think
Yeah.
what we've been punched in the face in 2020, and we've got to get back on the front foot in 2021. It's like, okay, virus, okay, government. We understand you've got a job to do managing public health. But we've also got to live our lives as well, and we've got to figure out a way of doing that. And I think that's just down to human
Yeah, but
ingenuity.
we also, not only that, we also have to maintain our integrity. We have to maintain ourselves. We have to be us. Look at this guy in the middle. He really wants to have a drink. One of the main things is that you have to be yourself. One of the things that we have lost is we have lost the human connection.
Yeah.
People cannot be themselves. You go out and I was in the mall. It was horrible, man. It was horrible getting this box thing. It's always horrible walking around and you're talking to people and people are like looking at you like you're some kind of alien. I just want that feeling to go away. I just want all of us to be ourselves again.
Frank, listen to me now, right? We all were looking at 2020 as being completely negative. It's a shit year, and you just want to forget it. Let me turn that round, right? If it wasn't for 2020, would we be doing what we're doing now?
Yeah.
Right? Would this show that we're putting on probably be half as successful as it is? I didn't know Mr. Carl over there, and I didn't know you. Right? That in itself, to me, right, is reward enough for being confined. So I know sooner or later I'm going to see you two, right? I'm going to grab all you, give the biggest hug I can probably muster, right? And it will be good. That will spur me on until I actually get to that point. So come on, let's not be too negative, right? If it wasn't for all of this strangeness that's going on, this, right, we wouldn't be here now.
There you go.
Absolutely
Yeah,
right.
After tonight, Carl Manson hates me. He's going to have like some flags about me. He's going to be like, "You hate DJs, you bastard! I hate you already."
No!
He's not keen, Frank. I really think he's not keen.
Don't go all gin drinker on me, because they did that in the Peaky Blinders, didn't they? There was a brilliant line in it. It's like, "Oh, people don't want gin anymore. It makes them miserable. They want rum to make them feel happy." And
certainly does, yeah.
don't go gin drinker on me. Absolutely no problem. Absolutely no problem.
No. I know that. Actually, as a matter of fact, I'm pulling your leg because I know you so well. Is that the wife behind you?
Yeah, we've had that classic moment where Mrs. M comes in and says,
bring Mrs. M on. I want to say hello to her.
She's just said, come into the studio that it stinks in here, which is a classic opening gambit.
Which is a classic opening gambit. She does not even know what I am. She does not even does she understand that Frank is moving to Coimbra? Things are going to change very quickly.
If I say that, do you understand that Frank is moving to Coimbra now? To her, it's not going to really help.
It's not going to help.
It's not going to be an improvement on her evening.
It's not. She'll be like, "Oh God, that terror is coming to town."
That's right. It's going to smell like the 70s in the studio.
It's going to smell like the 70s in the studio. We are going to be doing a lot of different shows. We're going to be doing a lot of different stuff that people are not going to appreciate, but we're still going to do them.
And we are going to have that 70s, 80s night in Coimbra.
We are going to have an amazing. I actually have a lot of great things in mind with you, my wonderful friends. We're going to transmit a lot of great energy out. I have a lot of positivity about this new year. I think we're going to do spectacular, amazing things together. I am so privileged to have you as my friends. This is going to be a spectacular new year. I don't care what anyone thinks about vaccine or no vaccine or whatever. It's just humanity. And I
Yes,
think we need to work with each other.
well said, Frank. And I've
You're
got
you're the
I,
man, Frank.
we've seen you through to your 1 o'clock threshold here now. My research into Portuguese mankinis will continue. That'll be a separate thing. But I need to show you now the pictures of Valerie Leon, who was
on.
the model.
I was going to ask about this.
Yeah, these, I mean, of all the things we could have looked up tonight, this is an absolute treat. This was the woman who was featured in the high karate adverts of the 1970s. She is still alive, and
Oh, yeah.
She's 77 years of age. And I
Wow.
think we should
Looks
bring her over to
77.
Portugal. She might even live in the Algarve. She looks the sort who might live in the Algarve. You know,
She probably does. Let's do
Can
an
we just click
interview
on one
with
of those
her.
images, Carl? Can we just click on one of them? Just one.
which one would you like?
No,
That's
the
the red outfit. No,
The
Frank,
red-
don't
one,
forget.
the
This
one,
here.
That's the one.
the
That's the
one
one.
where she's exactly half naked.
This is Valerie Leon, everybody. This is
All right. Thank you very much.
this epitomizes all that was good and great about the I rest my case that the 1970s were the best decade ever, that this woman was able to pretend to be Japanese to sell a dubious aftershave called High and people bought it. Look at this.
Yes.
Damn, says Joel in
Damn it,
Porto.
man.
Yeah.
Oh, damn it.
She was a Bond girl. She was.
She was a Bond girl, wasn't she? I don't know which movie. Guys, we should try a liqueur Berau. It's very that
Yes.
Marcos,
Yes.
that is when I next go to my local, when I went in there and stamped my authority by asking for an aguardent, a CR, an F, I'm going to go for Berau next and show that I know what I'm doing.
Have you had it, Carl? You had it before?
I don't think I have. I've got to do that, haven't I?
No, we're going to. It's an amazing liquor. It's an amazing liquor. We got to do it together.
We've got to do that together. Okay, but what a wonderful woman. So she should come to our club night, shouldn't she? Or we should interview her.
She should absolutely be coming into the.
She is the ultimate sort of 70s icon, isn't she? Quite incredible.
Absolutely.
And there she is probably in some sort of 70s movie where she's being asked to look afraid. react.
I'm not looking at your face.
Well, look at this. Okay.
Oh, this guy.
This now feels weird. Granny was hot. She's Valerie Leon. Yes. Do you know what? Valerie Leon, she again with Leon as her surname, she could of course be Portuguese, couldn't she?
Possibly.
We will find out more about her. And at this point, we'll go to a few seconds each to wish everybody a happy new year and a good evening. Gary and Frank, you've been amazing tonight. 3 hours of this nonsense. Gary, you first.
It's not nonsense. Please, Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think I've wished everybody else in the universe Happy New Year. So to you guys, my new friends, right, let's make this one a good one. Let's get together. Let's make it happen. And let's make 21 a good one.
Nice one. Frank?
I don't believe you guys are new friends. You're old friends that I've gotten to meet again. I actually believe in some time in my life, I have met you, both of you nitwits. Stop smiling, Gary.
Sorry.
I have met both of you guys at some point, and we've done something amazing together. This is exactly the charm of what we do together. So I am so thankful and so happy that I'm with both of you and the rest of the folks around. This is such an amazing pleasure to see you guys every week. And it is so generous of both of you to allow me to be in the same space as both of you. So I love both of you. This is going to be an amazing year, and we're going to do amazing stuff together. Thank you so very much for having me on here.
Oh, Frank.
Lovely word, Frank. Thank you.
You guys.
You guys.
I agree with Marcos here. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Frank. And yeah, let's make it an amazing one. and it's almost like, you know, that the old cliche of, you know, how the oyster turns the bit of sand into a pearl, or how coal gets compressed by pressure into a diamond. Perhaps the social conditions of this last year will create the most incredible outpouring of community and collaboration and fun and joy for us all in 2021. So here's to that. All the best, yeah.
Here's to that, and here's to brotherhood, and just being very nice and simple, and just being sweet to each one another. This is what I think all this means to be.
Amazing. Well, that's the good news. The bad news is I can't find a Portuguese mankini, but given that this is the great
You'll
country,
find one. You'll find one.
You'll get there.
It's got to be green on one side, isn't it? And
It
red on,
does.
and maybe the logo, the little gold yellow bit, goes around the lower nether regions, and people can come and press it and that sort of thing. I don't know. Very, very generous of course. He's got a lot of stamina. It's been a test. It's been a test of my stamina tonight. But I'm on the. This is an unlabeled bottle of port that I've been drinking. It was given to me by my landlady here, Donna Grassa. Her husband made this. Her late husband made this, and she gave it to me for Christmas from the cellar.
This is spectacular.
How much you've had, Carl? How many glasses?
I've had 3/5 of the bottle.
Oh, you better have a glass of water if you go to bed, dude.
2 glasses of water. Thank you very much for that reminder, Gary.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. You man cave
guys.
are awesome. Take care. Bye for now. We'll see you next Friday.
Yeah.
Thank you.
70s definitely the best. Ciao, ciao. Bye.